You're pathetic, Rachel. You can't even keep yourself alive, and now you think you deserve a cabin worth millions. Victoria's voice dripped with venom through the phone, and Rachel Turner's hand trembled so hard she almost dropped it. Sign it over, today, or I swear to God I will make sure you never see that property. I will make sure you lose everything, including Emma. Rachel stood in the corner of a homeless shelter 7 months pregnant, wearing clothes she'd washed in a gas station sink. Her 8-year-old daughter was at school, pretending they had a home to go back to, and somewhere in Montana, a cabin worth $265 million was waiting for her. Her siblings wanted it. They would lie, cheat, and destroy her to get it. But they didn't know Rachel Turner. They didn't know what a mother would do to protect her children. Before we continue, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and follow this story to the very end. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now let me tell you how a pregnant homeless woman discovered a fortune hidden beneath an old cabin floor, and how her own blood tried to tear her apart to steal it. The baby kicked hard against Rachel's ribs, and she gasped, pressing her hand against her swollen belly. 7 months. 7 months of growing life inside a body that hadn't known a real bed in almost a year. She shifted in the driver's seat of the Honda Civic, trying to find a position that didn't make her back scream. The windows were fogged from their breath. December frost coated the outside. The Walmart parking lot was still dark, still quiet, still the only home they had. "Mom?" Emma's voice came from the back seat, small and sleepy. "Is it morning?" "Almost, baby. Go back to sleep for a few more minutes." But Emma was already sitting up, rubbing her eye, clutching the worn stuffed dog she'd had since she was 3. Back when they still had an apartment, back when Rachel still had a job and a future and hope. "I'm hungry." Those 2 words hit Rachel like a punch to the stomach. She reached into the console and pulled out their last granola bar, broke it in half, gave Emma the bigger piece. "What about you, Mom?" "I already ate." The lie came easy now. She'd gotten good at lying about food, about everything, about why they lived in a car, about why Mommy cried at night when she thought Emma was asleep, about why the baby might be born in a hospital parking lot because Rachel couldn't afford actual medical care. Emma chewed slowly, making it last, and Rachel watched her daughter in the rearview mirror. 8 years old, thin face, old eyes, a child who had learned to ration food and lie to teachers and pretend everything was fine when nothing was fine at all. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Always, baby." "Are we ever going to have a real house again?" Rachel's throat closed up. She couldn't answer, couldn't find words that weren't lies or broken promises. The baby kicked again, harder this time, and Rachel pressed both hands against her belly, willing the child inside her to be patient, to wait, to give her just a little more time to figure out how to survive. "Get dressed for school," she finally said. "We need to move before security comes." They went through their morning routine with the efficiency of 11 months of practice. Baby wipes for washing, cold water from a plastic jug, school clothes pulled from a garbage bag. Rachel helped Emma change while trying to maintain some privacy in the parking lot, her pregnant body making every movement awkward and painful. "Jessica's having a birthday party this weekend," Emma said quietly. "She invited everyone in the class." "That's nice, baby." "She asked for my address to send the invitation." Rachel stopped moving. Her hands froze on Emma's jacket zipper. "What did you tell her?" "I said we're moving soon, that our mail is all messed up." Emma's voice was matter-of-fact. An 8-year-old who had mastered the art of deflection. "I said maybe she could just tell me the details at school." "That was smart thinking." "Mom," Emma looked up with those serious dark eyes. "Do you think Jessica would still be my friend if she knew we lived in a car?" Rachel knelt down, her belly making it difficult, and took her daughter's face in her hands. "Real friends don't care about where you live. Real friends care about who you are, and you, Emma Turner, are the kindest, bravest, smartest girl I know. Then why do we have to lie?" Rachel didn't have an answer. She pulled Emma into a hug and held on tight, feeling the baby kick between them, 3 lives tangled together in a parking lot at dawn. The walk to the bus stop took 10 minutes. Rachel watched Emma climb aboard with the other children, the ones with homes and packed lunches and parents who weren't failing them every single day. She watched until the bus disappeared. Then she walked back to the Honda, sat in the driver's seat, and let herself cry for exactly 5 minutes. That was all she could afford. 5 minutes of weakness. Then she had to pull herself together and figure out how to make it through another day. The shelter opened at 8. St. Mary's Women's Shelter on Portland's east side, run by Sister Catherine for the past 30 years. Rachel had stayed there a decade ago, fleeing an ex-husband whose fists came out when he drank. Now she used their address for mail, a lifeline to legitimacy in a world that required permanent addresses for everything. Sister Catherine looked up when Rachel waddled through the door, and her expression shifted immediately to concern. "You look terrible. Sit down before you fall down." "I'm fine, sister." "You're 7 months pregnant and you haven't eaten in 2 days. Don't lie to me, child. I've known you too long." Rachel wanted to argue, wanted to maintain the facade, but her legs were shaking and the room was spinning slightly and the baby was kicking like it was trying to escape. She sat. Sister Catherine disappeared into the back and returned with a plate of scrambled eggs and sriracha toast still warm from the kitchen. "Eat, all of it, and don't you dare tell me you're not hungry." Rachel ate. The food was the best thing she'd tasted in weeks, and she had to force herself to slow down, to not inhale it like an animal. "There's something else." Sister Catherine slid an envelope across the table. "This came for you yesterday. Looks important." The envelope was cream-colored. Thick paper? Expensive. The return address read Finch & Associates Attorneys at Law, Helena, Montana. Rachel's first thought was trouble. Debt collectors. Lawsuits. Something else going wrong in a life that had been nothing but wrong for the past year. She tore it open. "Dear Ms. Turner, we are writing to inform you that you have been named as the sole beneficiary in the estate of Nathan James Turner, your late great-uncle." Rachel stopped breathing. "Mr. Turner passed away 4 months ago at the age of 91. His estate has been finalized, and per his explicit instructions, his property in Jefferson County, Montana, is to be transferred to you and your daughter upon completion of legal requirements." "What is it?" Sister Catherine's voice seemed far away. Rachel kept reading. "The property consists of a log cabin on 47 acres of forested land. There are no debts or liens. The property is free and clear. A check for $2,000 is enclosed to cover travel expenses." The check fell out of the envelope. $2,000, made out to Rachel Turner. "My great-uncle died." Rachel's voice didn't sound like her own. "He left me a cabin, in Montana." "A cabin? I don't understand." Rachel looked up, tears already forming. "I only met him twice. Once at my father's funeral. I was 19. He stood in the back and didn't talk to anyone. I barely remember his face." Sister Catherine picked up the letter, read it slowly, and when she looked back at Rachel, her eyes were bright with something that might have been wonder. "This is real, child. This is your miracle. It could be nothing, a shack falling apart in the woods, or it could be exactly what you need." Sister Catherine pushed the office phone across the table. "Call them. Find out." Rachel's hands shook as she dialed. The phone rang twice. "Finch & Associates, Harold Finch speaking." "Mr. Finch, this is Rachel Turner. I received your letter about my great-uncle Nathan." "Ms. Turner." The voice on the other end warmed immediately. "I'm so glad you called. Nathan was very specific about his wishes. Everything goes to you and your daughter, no one else. Why, I don't understand why he would leave anything to me. Nathan watched his family from a distance for many years. He told me you reminded him of what family should be. He said you were the kind of person who gave without keeping score." Harold Finch paused. He wanted to give something back. Rachel couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down her face now, and she couldn't stop them. "The cabin is solid," Finch continued. "Remote, but solid. Solar power. Well water. Nathan built it himself and maintained it for 67 years. It's more than a shack, Ms. Turner. It's a home." A home. The word broke something open in Rachel's chest. "I'll come," she whispered. "I'll come as soon as I can. I'll be here waiting. Welcome to Montana." Rachel hung up and looked at Sister Catherine. "I think we're moving to Montana." Then she made the mistake that would haunt her for weeks. She called her sister Victoria. Some desperate, naive part of her still believed that family meant something, that blood was thicker than water, that the people who should have protected her might finally step up. Victoria answered on the 4th ring. "Rachel, I'm busy. What do you want?" "Dad's Uncle Nathan died. He left me property in Montana, a cabin and 47 acres of land." Silence. Long, terrible silence. Then Victoria laughed. That sharp cutting sound Rachel remembered from childhood, the laugh that meant someone was about to be humiliated. "A cabin in Montana? You, Rachel, you can't even keep a studio apartment. You can't feed yourself, and you think you can manage property. It's mine, Vicky. Nathan left it to me and Emma specifically." "Don't be ridiculous. Just sign it over to me. I'll handle the sale. We'll split the proceeds. That's the fair thing to do." The fair thing? Rachel felt something hot and dangerous rising in her chest. "You want to talk about fair? Don't start with that again." You took $87,000 from me, Victoria. You and Brandon and Megan. You said you needed it for Dad's medical bills. You promised to pay me back. Those were loans. It's not our fault you can't manage money. I gave you everything I had, every penny of my savings, every cent of my inheritance. And when I needed help when I was pregnant and terrified and about to be homeless, you blocked my calls. We had our own problems, Rachel. We couldn't be responsible for your bad decisions. My bad decisions? Rachel's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. I trusted my family. That was my bad decision. I believed you when you said you needed help. That was my mistake. Victoria's voice went ice cold. Sign over the property. You're not capable of handling something like this. You've proven that over and over. Someone competent needs to step in before you destroy this opportunity, like you've destroyed everything else in your life. Rachel gripped the phone so hard her knuckles went white. I'm not signing anything over to you. That cabin is mine. Nathan wanted me to have it, and I'm going to keep it. We'll see about that. The call disconnected. Rachel sat there shaking, staring at the phone in her hand. She should have known better, should have remembered who her siblings really were. But some part of her, some small, hopeful, foolish part, had believed that maybe this time would be different. It was never going to be different. That night she told Emma about the cabin. They sat in the Honda in their usual spot at the edge of the Walmart parking lot, streetlights casting orange stripes across the windows. Emma listened with wide eyes as Rachel explained about the letter, the attorney, the property in Montana. We have a house. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. A real house. We have a cabin, baby, in the mountains, with trees and rivers and maybe even bears. Bears? Emma's face lit up with the first real joy Rachel had seen in months. We're going to live near actual bears. Maybe. Mr. Finch said there's all kinds of wildlife. Can we go now tonight? Tomorrow morning, we need to pack our things and plan the route. Emma threw her arms around Rachel's neck, hugging so tight it was hard to breathe. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for keeping us safe until Uncle Nathan could help us. Rachel held her daughter and cried, not from sadness this time, from something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. They left Portland at dawn. The Honda's tank was full the first time in months Rachel hadn't had to ration gas. The $2,000 from Harold Finch sat in an envelope in the glove compartment, more money than Rachel had seen in one place since her siblings had cleaned her out. Emma sat in the back seat with her notebook open, tracking their progress on a paper map. We need to go 843 miles, she announced. That's about 12 hours of driving if we don't stop. We'll stop, baby. I need to rest, and you need to eat, and the baby needs me to not be stressed. The baby? Emma put her hand on her stomach, then looked at Rachel's belly. Do you think the baby knows we're going somewhere better? I think the baby knows we're trying our best. The first 4 hours went smoothly. Interstate 84 stretched east through Oregon, the landscape slowly changing from city to farmland to high desert. Emma kept her face pressed to the window, making small sounds of wonder at every new sight. Then Rachel's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Brandon. Her stomach dropped, but she answered anyway. What do you want? I just got off the phone with Victoria. Brandon's voice was hard and angry, the voice he'd used since they were children whenever he wanted to intimidate her. She told me you're refusing to cooperate. There's nothing to cooperate about. The cabin is mine. The cabin should be split between all of us. Nathan was our great uncle, too. He didn't leave it to all of you. He left it to me. Specifically, there's nothing you can do about it. That's where you're wrong? Brandon's laugh was ugly. Victoria's already talked to a lawyer. We're going to contest the will. We're going to prove you're not mentally capable of managing a significant estate. Rachel's blood went cold. What? Think about it, Rachel. You're homeless. You're pregnant with no father in the picture. You've made one bad decision after another for years. Any judge would agree that someone needs to step in and protect those assets from being wasted. You can't do that. Watch us. And while we're at it, maybe we should talk about whether you're really fit to be raising Emma, a mother who can't even provide a roof over her child's head. That's neglect, Rachel. That's grounds for intervention. The threat hit Rachel like a physical blow. Her hands started shaking so badly she had to pull over to the side of the highway. You wouldn't. Try me. Sign over the property, and this all goes away. Keep fighting, and I promise you, you will lose everything. The cabin, your dignity, maybe even your daughter. Brandon, please, I'm begging you, just leave us alone. Let us have this one thing. You have until we get to Montana to make the right decision. The call ended. Rachel sat on the shoulder of the highway cars streaming past, her whole body shaking. Emma's face appeared between the front seats, worried and scared. "Mom, who was that? What's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. Everything's fine." "You're crying?" Rachel wiped her face with trembling hands. "I'm just tired. We've been driving for a long time." "Was that Uncle Brandon?" Rachel couldn't lie. Not about this. "Yes?" "Is he trying to take our cabin?" "He's trying, but he won't succeed." "How do you know?" Rachel looked at her daughter, at this brave, strong, loyal child who had survived everything life had thrown at them. "Because I won't let him. I will never let anyone take what's ours. Not again." She pulled back onto the highway and kept driving. The gas station in Boise saved them. Rachel had been watching the fuel gauge drop for the past 50 miles, doing math in her head, trying to figure out if they could make it to the next cheap station. The baby was pressing on her bladder, and Emma was starting to look pale and uncomfortable in the back seat. They pulled into a rundown station on the outskirts of the city. Rachel filled the tank while Emma went inside to use the bathroom. When Emma came back, she was holding her stomach. "Mom, I don't feel good." Rachel felt her daughter's forehead. Warm, too warm. "What hurts, baby?" "My stomach, and my head, and everything." Rachel's heart started racing. No insurance, no money for doctors, and her daughter was getting sick 400 miles from anywhere. She bought children's Tylenol and Gatorade from the gas station, settled Emma in the back seat with a blanket, and tried to stay calm. "Just rest, baby. We'll stop for the night soon." "Are we still going to the cabin?" "Yes, nothing is stopping us from getting to our cabin." "Promise." Rachel looked at her sick daughter, felt the baby kick inside her, and made a vow she would die before breaking. "I promise." They found a rest stop in eastern Idaho as the sun was setting. Rachel parked in a corner away from the trucks, helped Emma take more medicine, and held her daughter as she fell into a fitful sleep. The baby wouldn't stop moving. Rachel's back was screaming. Her legs were swollen. Her head was pounding with stress and exhaustion and fear. Brandon's words kept echoing in her mind. Neglect, intervention, losing Emma. She had spent 2 years protecting her daughter through homelessness, hunger, and humiliation. She had given up everything to keep Emma safe, and now her own brother was threatening to use all of it against her. Rachel put her hand on her belly and whispered to the baby inside, "I won't let them win. I won't let them take anything else from us. We're going to get to that cabin, and we're going to make it our home, and nobody is ever going to hurt us again." The baby kicked in response. Rachel chose to believe it was agreement. Emma's fever broke by morning. She woke up hungry and thirsty and demanding to see the map, and Rachel almost cried with relief. They ate breakfast at a diner, real food at a real table, and Emma chattered about bears and wolves and mountains like she hadn't been scaring Rachel half to death just 12 hours ago. "How much further?" Emma asked between bites of pancake. "About 5 more hours to Helena, then another couple hours to the cabin." "We're going to be there today. We're going to be there today." Emma's smile was the brightest thing Rachel had seen in months. They crossed into Montana at noon. Rachel felt something shift the moment they passed the state line. The sky opened up impossibly wide. Mountains rose in the distance like promises. The air coming through the vents smelled different, cleaner, sharper, alive. "Mom?" Emma's voice was hushed with wonder. "It's so beautiful." "It is, baby." "Do you think Uncle Nathan loved it here?" "I think he must have. He lived here for 67 years. All by himself. All by himself." Emma was quiet for a moment. "That sounds lonely." "Maybe it was. Maybe that's why he wanted us to have the cabin, so it wouldn't be lonely anymore." Helena appeared in the early afternoon, an actual city nestled in a valley. Mountains rising on all sides. Rachel found Harold Finch's office on a quiet street downtown, a brick building with a brass nameplate that looked like it had been there for 100 years. Her hands were shaking as she helped Emma out of the car. "What if they changed their mind?" Emma whispered. "What if they don't give us the cabin? Then we'll figure something else out. We always do. But what if they take it away like Uncle Brandon said?" Rachel knelt down, ignoring her aching back and her swollen ankles and the baby pressing against her ribs. "Listen to me, Emma. Uncle Nathan wanted us to have that cabin. He wrote it down. He made it legal. And no matter what Uncle Brandon or Aunt Victoria say, they can't change what Uncle Nathan decided. The cabin is ours. It's always going to be ours." "Promise?" "Promise." Harold Finch was waiting for them. 73 years old, silver hair, weathered face, the kind of man who looked like he'd spent his life in these mountains. He came around his desk when Rachel walked in, shook her hand firmly, then knelt down and offered his hand to Emma. "You must be Emma. Nathan told me about you." "He did." Emma shook his hand solemnly. "But I never met him." "He met you, once when you were very small, at your grandfather's funeral." Finch smiled gently. "He said you had your mother's eyes and your grandfather's spirit." Emma looked up at Rachel. "Did Uncle Nathan know Grandpa?" "They were brothers," Rachel said. "Well, your grandpa's uncle. He knew him before any of us were born." Finch straightened up and gestured to chairs. "Sit. You've had a long journey. Let me tell you about what Nathan left you." The office was warm and comfortable. Law books lined the walls. A photograph showed a younger Finch standing next to an older man on a mountain trail. "Is that him?" Rachel asked. "Uncle Nathan." "That's him. Taken about 10 years ago on his 80th birthday. I hiked to his cabin with a cake and he complained the whole time that I was making too much fuss." "What was he like?" Finch considered the question carefully. "Private, quiet, the kind of man who preferred trees to people and silence to conversation, but loyal. Once Nathan decided you were worth his time, he never forgot you." "He barely knew me." "He knew you better than you think." Finch leaned forward. He watched his family for decades, observed them at gatherings, made judgments about who was worthy of his respect. His eyes met Rachel's. "He said you were the only one who gave. Who gave without keeping score. The only one who helped others without expecting anything in return. He said people like you were rare and needed to be protected." Rachel felt tears running down her cheeks. She couldn't stop them. "He left you everything," Finch continued. "The cabin, the land, and some other things we can discuss later. But for now, I need you to sign some papers and then I'll drive you out to see your new home. Other things. Later." Finch's expression was carefully neutral. "First, let's get you settled. You look like you need rest." Rachel signed the papers. Each signature felt like a door opening a chain, breaking a new chapter beginning. When it was done, Finch pulled out a key from his desk drawer. Old brass worn smooth by decades of use. He handed it to Rachel. "Welcome home, Ms. Turner." The drive to the cabin took over 2 hours. Finch's pickup handled roads the Honda never could have survived. The forest closed in on both sides, pine and fir and aspen sunlight slanting through branches like something from a dream Emma might have drawn. "Is it always this quiet?" Emma asked. "Mostly. Sometimes you hear animals, sometimes the wind, sometimes nothing at all." "I like it." Emma pressed her face to the window. "It feels safe." Finch glanced at Rachel. "Nathan said the same thing when he first came here, that the silence felt like protection." The truck rounded a final curve. The forest opened into a clearing, and Rachel stopped breathing. The cabin stood before them, 2 stories of hand-hewn logs, a stone chimney, a wraparound porch with carved railings. Mountains rose behind it, purple and gold in the late afternoon light. It wasn't a shack. It wasn't falling apart. It was beautiful. Emma scrambled out of the truck and ran toward the porch, laughing with a joy Rachel hadn't heard in months. Rachel followed more slowly, one hand on her belly, tears streaming down her face. This was real. This was theirs. This was home. Finch handed her the brass key. "I'll leave you to explore. There's food inside firewood, everything you need for a few days. I'll come back to check on you." "I don't know how to thank you." "Thank Nathan. He spent 67 years building this place. He spent his whole life waiting for the right person to give it to." Finch smiled. "I think he chose well." Rachel walked up the porch steps, key heavy in her hand. Emma was already at the door, bouncing with impatience. "Can I open it, please?" Rachel handed her the key. Emma fitted it into the lock carefully, reverently, like she was performing a sacred ritual. She turned it slowly. The door swung open. Warm air rolled out, carrying the scent of wood smoke and pine. Emma stepped inside first. Rachel followed. The main room was simple but beautiful. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. Handmade furniture sat arranged around a colorful rug. Windows looked out at mountains that seemed close enough to touch. "Mom?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "We have a house. We actually have a real house." Rachel pulled her daughter close, feeling the baby kick between them. 3 lives, 1 home, a future that had seemed impossible just 3 days ago. "We did it, baby. We made it." Emma hugged her back fiercely. "Uncle Nathan knew," she said. "He knew we needed this. He was waiting to help us." Rachel looked around the cabin that her great-uncle had built with his own hands 67 years ago. Every log, every stone, every carved detail was proof that someone had cared enough to create something permanent. and now it was theirs. She didn't know yet about the vault hidden beneath the floor, didn't know about the fortune waiting in the darkness below, didn't know that her siblings were already plotting to take everything. All she knew was that for the first time in 2 years she and Emma had a home, and she would fight to the death to keep it. The first night in the cabin, Rachel couldn't sleep. She lay in Nathan's bed, the mattress softer than anything she'd felt in a year, quilts heavy and warm around her body. The baby kicked steadily, restless in the silence. No traffic sounds, no voices, no security guards knocking on windows at 2 in the morning. Just quiet. Terrifying, beautiful quiet. She got up twice to check on Emma, finding her daughter sprawled across the smaller bed in the room next door, sleeping deeper than Rachel had seen in months. Biscuit, the stuffed dog, was clutched against her chest. A smile curved her lips, even in sleep. Safe, they were safe. Rachel put her hand on her belly and whispered to the baby inside, "We made it. We actually made it." The baby kicked in response, and Rachel chose to believe it was celebration. Morning came with birdsong. Emma burst into Rachel's room at dawn, still in her pajamas, eyes wild with excitement. Mom, wake up. There's a deer outside, a real deer. It's eating something by the trees." Rachel pushed herself up her back, protesting, and followed her daughter to the window. A doe stood at the edge of the clearing, calm and unafraid, nibbling at something on the ground. "She's beautiful," Emma breathed. "She is. Do you think she lives here, like near the cabin?" "Probably. Mr. Finch said there's lots of wildlife." "Uncle Nathan must have fed her." Emma pressed her face to the glass. "He must have been her friend, and now we can be her friend too." Rachel watched her daughter watch the deer, and something cracked open in her chest. This was what childhood was supposed to look like. Wonder, joy, safety, not parking lots and hunger and lies. "Come on," Rachel said. "Let's figure out breakfast." The wood stove took some getting used to. Rachel burned her first attempt at eggs, and nearly set a towel on fire trying to boil water. Emma thought it was hilarious, laughing so hard she fell off her chair. "Mom, you're supposed to wait until it's hot, not throw everything on at once." "I know that now, thank you very much." Grandpa would have laughed at you. Grandpa would have done the same thing and blamed the stove. They ate slightly charred toast and mostly cooked eggs, and it was the best breakfast Rachel had ever tasted, because they were eating it in their own kitchen, in their own home. Emma pulled out her notebook after breakfast, the one she'd filled with drawings of houses during their months of homelessness. She flipped to a fresh page. "I'm going to draw our cabin," she announced. "Every room, every detail, so I never forget what it looks like." "That's a wonderful idea, baby. Can I explore? I want to measure things, make a real map." "Stay inside for now. I don't want you wandering into the woods alone." "Okay." Emma grabbed a tape measure from Nathan's workshop, which she'd already discovered, and proclaimed the coolest room ever, and got to work. Rachel spent the morning learning the cabin. The hand pump at the kitchen sink required technique, but the water that came up was cold and clean, and tasted like nothing she'd ever experienced. The root cellar stayed cool even with the wood stove running shelves lined with mason jars of preserved vegetables and fruits that Nathan had put up himself. Every drawer she opened revealed more of who Nathan had been. Tools organized with military precision. Books arranged by subject and author. Notebooks filled with observations about weather and wildlife and the slow passage of seasons. A man who had lived alone for 67 years, but who had filled every day with purpose. Rachel found his photograph. Again the young soldier standing beside a helicopter in Vietnam, and tried to understand how that person had become the recluse who built this cabin and left it to her. "He saw something in you that he recognized in himself," she murmured to the empty room. "But what?" Emma's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Mom, can you come here?" Something in her daughter's tone made Rachel's stomach tighten. She found Emma in the main room, tape measure in hand, notebook open, frowning at her calculations. "What is it, baby?" "Something's wrong with the measurement." "What do you mean?" Emma pointed at her notebook. "The outside wall is 46 feet. I measured it 3 times to make sure. But the inside rooms only add up to 42 feet. Maybe the walls are thicker than you think. It's an old cabin." 4 feet thicker. Emma shook her head. "That doesn't make sense. Even if the logs are really big, 4 feet is too much." Rachel looked at the walls. Solid logs fitted together so tightly you could barely see the seams. "Show me what you measured." They walked the perimeter together, counting steps, comparing Emma's numbers to their own observations. The math didn't lie. 4 feet of space was missing. 4 feet that should exist, but didn't seem to. "Maybe there's a closet we missed," Rachel said. "I checked every door, every wall." Emma's eyes were bright with something between confusion and excitement. "Mom, I think there's a secret room." A secret room, baby, that's... I'm serious. Look at the fireplace. Rachel looked. The massive stone fireplace dominated the north wall. River rocks fitted together with precision that must have taken months to achieve. The mantel was carved with intricate patterns of leaves, vines, and birds. What am I looking at? The birds. Emma moved closer, running her fingers over the carvings. They're all the same depth, except this one. She pointed to a small wren near the bottom right corner. The wood around it was slightly worn, as if someone had touched it repeatedly over many years. It feels different, Emma said, like it moves. Rachel's heart started beating faster. Emma, don't... But Emma had already pressed it. A soft click echoed through the room. Then came the sound of stone grinding against stone. Rachel grabbed Emma and pulled her back as a section of floor in front of the fireplace began to separate from the rest. Dust broke free from a hairline crack that suddenly became visible. The panel rose on some kind of hidden mechanism, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. Mom, Emma's voice was barely a whisper. I told you, a secret room. Rachel stared at the opening in the floor. Her mind raced through possibilities. An old cellar, a storage space, a bomb shelter from the Cold War. Stay here, she said. No way. Emma, I found it. I'm coming with you. Rachel wanted to argue, wanted to protect her daughter from whatever waited below, but Emma's face was set with that stubborn determination that reminded Rachel so much of herself. Fine, but stay behind me. Rachel found a flashlight in Nathan's workshop, tested the batteries, and returned to the opening. The stone steps descended into blackness, narrow and steep, carved directly into bedrock. Ready? Rachel asked. Emma nodded. Rachel went first, one hand on the wall for balance, the other holding the flashlight. Each step felt like entering another world. The air grew cooler. The light from above faded. 12 steps down. The flashlight beam swept across the space, and Rachel stopped breathing. The chamber was enormous. Vaulted stone ceiling supported by hand-hewn beams. Walls lined with shelves from floor to ceiling. Wooden crates stacked carefully, each labeled with numbers and dates. Glass-fronted cabinets holding objects Rachel couldn't immediately identify. And in the center, a massive oak desk with papers arranged in neat stacks. Mom. Emma's voice was hushed. What is this place? Rachel moved deeper into the room, her flashlight revealing more with every step. Paintings leaned against the walls, some in ornate frames, some simply wrapped in cloth. Leather-bound books lined entire sections of shelving. Small boxes with combination locks sat in rows, their contents unknown. On the desk, a journal lay open. Nathan's handwriting, precise and careful, filled the page. Rachel picked it up with trembling hands. Final accounting as of this date, August 15th, 2024. Her eyes moved down the page. Paintings and sculptures, $78, $400,000. Rare books and manuscripts, $21,200,000. Coins and precious metals, $47, $600,000. Stocks and bonds, $98, $800,000. Miscellaneous items, $19,000. Total estimated value, $265,000. Rachel read the number 5 times. Her legs gave out. She sat down hard on the stone floor, the journal clutched in her hands, unable to process what she was seeing. Mom? Emma rushed to her side. Mom, what's wrong? What does it say? $265 million. The words sounded insane coming out of her mouth. Impossible. Absurd. What? Uncle Nathan. He left us $265 million. It's all here, in this room. Emma looked around the chamber with new eyes. At the crates and cabinets and carefully preserved treasures. 265 million like for real. For real. We're rich? Rachel started laughing, then crying, then both at once, hysterical and overwhelmed, clutching her pregnant belly as the baby kicked and kicked. We're rich, baby. We're actually rich. Emma grabbed the journal and started flipping through pages. Entry after entry documented Nathan's acquisitions over 67 years. Paintings bought at estate sales for hundreds of dollars, now worth millions. Stock certificates from the 1970s that had multiplied 100-fold. First edition books. Ancient coins. Bronze sculptures. He collected all this by himself, Emma asked. Living alone in the woods. He was an accountant before he moved here. Mr. Finch mentioned that.
Takaz.
Rachel wiped her face, trying to pull herself together. He must have invested everything he earned. Bought things when they were cheap and held on to them for decades. Why didn't he ever sell anything? I don't know. Rachel looked around the vault. Maybe he didn't need the money. Maybe he liked knowing it was here. Maybe he was saving it for something. For us? Emma's voice was certain. "He was saving it for us?" Rachel found the letter at the back of the journal, an envelope addressed in Nathan's handwriting for Rachel Turner should she find this collection. She opened it with shaking hands. "Dear Rachel, I watched you grow from a distance. Saw you at family gatherings, weddings, funerals. I saw how you cared for your father when he was dying. I saw how you gave everything you had to your siblings when they claimed to need it. I saw how they took and took while you kept giving. I saw you pregnant and struggling when they abandoned you. Saw you sleeping in that car with your daughter, never giving up, never losing your dignity. This collection represents my life's work. 67 years of patience and faith. I leave it to you because you understand what truly matters. Your siblings will come when they find out. They will claim concern. They will claim you are incompetent. They will claim family should share. They will lie. They will manipulate. They will do anything to take what I meant for you. Stand firm. This is yours. Earned not by blood, but by being the kind of person who deserves it. Use it to give Emma and your new baby the lives they deserve. Blood doesn't make family. Character does. With respect and hope, Nathan James Turner." Rachel read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Nathan had seen her. All those years, all those gatherings where she'd felt invisible and overlooked, he had been watching, judging, deciding, and he had decided she was worth protecting. "Mom?" Emma's voice was soft. "There's another letter. It has my name on it." Rachel looked up. Emma held a smaller envelope addressed in the same careful handwriting. "For Emma, the brave girl who finds my secret." "Can I open it?" "Of course, baby." Emma tore the envelope carefully and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Dear Emma, if you're reading this, you found my hidden room. You must be clever and curious, which are fine qualities. This room holds many valuable things, but the most valuable thing is the family who found it together. I never had children of my own, but I watched your mother raise you. I saw how much she gave to make sure you were fed and safe and loved. I hope you know how lucky you are to have her, and I hope she knows how lucky she is to have you. Whatever happens with this collection, remember that your mother is a good person in a world that often punishes good people. Protect her. She has spent her whole life protecting you. Be brave, little one. The world needs more brave children." Your friend across time, Nathan Emma, looked up from the letter, eyes wet. "He knew me," she whispered. "He knew me even though we never met." Rachel pulled her daughter close, both of them crying now, surrounded by $265 million worth of art and books and treasure. "He saw us both, baby, and he decided we were worth saving." They spent hours in the vault. Rachel documented everything with photographs, her phone filling with images of paintings and sculptures and cabinets full of priceless items. Emma helped her small hands careful with objects that cost more than everything they'd ever owned combined. A Bierstadt landscape of mountains and clouds worth $52 million according to Nathan's records. A bronze horse by a sculptor Rachel didn't recognize, appraised at $12 million. First edition books by Twain Hemingway Fitzgerald, their dust jackets protected in archival sleeves. Ancient coins in velvet-lined cases. Roman, Byzantine, Chinese, each one documented with acquisition date and provenance. "How did no one know about this?" Emma asked. "He lived here for 67 years. Didn't anyone ever visit?" "Mr. Finch knew him, but maybe he didn't know about the vault." Rachel shook her head. "Nathan was careful. He didn't trust people. He built this place to protect what he valued. And then he gave it all to us. And then he gave it all to us." They climbed back upstairs as evening fell, closing the hidden entrance carefully behind them. Rachel stood in the main room, looking at the fireplace, trying to reconcile the modest cabin with the fortune hidden beneath it. "What do we do now?" Emma asked. "We call Mr. Finch in the morning. We tell him what we found." "And then what?" Rachel thought about her siblings, about Brandon's threats, about Victoria's demands, about the storm that was surely coming. "And then we prepare," she said. Because when your aunts and uncles find out about this, they're going to come for us, and we have to be ready." The call from Victoria came at 6 in the morning. Rachel was barely awake, still trying to process everything from the day before when her phone started buzzing. She saw the name on the screen, and her stomach dropped. "Hello? I know what you found." Victoria's voice was cold and triumphant. "I know about the vault." Rachel's blood turned to ice. "How?" "It doesn't matter how. What matters is that you're sitting on a fortune that belongs to the entire family, and you think you can keep it all for yourself. Nathan left it to me, not to the family, to me. Nathan was a senile old man living alone in the woods. He wasn't competent to make those decisions." Victoria's laugh was sharp. We've already started the process. Brandon and I met with lawyers yesterday. We're going to prove that Nathan wasn't in his right mind. We're going to get that will invalidated. And when we do, everything in that vault gets split between all of us. You can't do that. Watch us. Victoria's voice hardened. You have a choice, Rachel. Sign over the property and the collection voluntarily, and we'll give you a small percentage, 20%. That's still $50 million, more money than you've ever dreamed of. And if you don't, we'll take it all. We'll prove you're mentally unfit to manage an estate of this size. We'll take the cabin, the collection, and while we're at it, we'll prove you're unfit to be a mother. You'll lose everything, including Emma. Rachel's hand was shaking so hard she almost dropped the phone. You would do that. You would take my daughter to get your hands on money. I would do whatever it takes to get what's rightfully ours. Victoria's voice was pleasant now, almost friendly. You have 48 hours to make the right decision. After that, the lawyers take over. The line went dead. Rachel stood in the kitchen, staring at her phone, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under her. 48 hours. 48 hours before her siblings launched a legal assault that could destroy everything. Before they tried to take the cabin, the collection, and worst of all, her children. Mom? Emma's voice came from the doorway. Who was that? Rachel turned to find her daughter watching with worried eyes. Aunt Victoria. What did she want? Rachel wanted to lie. Wanted to protect Emma from the ugliness that was coming. But her daughter had earned the truth. She knows about the vault. She's going to try to take it from us. Emma's face went pale. She can't. Uncle Nathan left it to us. He wrote it down. She's going to try anyway. She and Uncle Brandon, they're going to say Uncle Nathan wasn't thinking clearly. They're going to try to prove I can't handle this. That's not fair. Emma's hands clenched into fists. You've handled everything. You kept us alive when we had nothing. You drove us across the country. You figured out the stove and the water pump and everything else. You can handle anything. Rachel pulled her daughter into a hug, fighting back tears. I need to call Mr. Finch, baby. I need help. Harold Finch arrived at the cabin 3 hours later. He wasn't alone. 2 people sat in the truck with him, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expensive suit, and a man in his 40s with the calm confidence of someone who spent his life in courtrooms. Rachel, this is Patricia Ortega, estate law specialist. Finch gestured to the woman. And Robert Kane, family law defense. Patricia shook Rachel's hand firmly. Harold called me last night, told me about the situation. I've dealt with cases like this before, vultures circling an inheritance. They're claiming Nathan wasn't competent, Rachel said. That the will should be invalidated. They can claim whatever they want. Proving it is another matter. Patricia's smile was sharp. Nathan was my client too. I helped him set up the trust that protects this property. I watched him make these decisions with a clear mind and full understanding of what he was doing. Robert spoke up. I specialize in defending against frivolous guardianship claims. Your sister mentioned trying to prove you're unfit to manage the estate and unfit as a mother. She said she'd take Emma. She can try. Robert's voice was steady and confident. But I've seen your situation. A mother who kept her child safe, fed and enrolled in school through 11 months of homelessness, that's not incompetence. That's heroism. They sat around Nathan's kitchen table and Rachel told them everything. The vault, the collection, Victoria's call, Brandon's threats from the highway, every ugly detail of what her siblings were planning. Patricia took notes. Robert asked questions. Finch listened quietly. Here's what we do, Patricia said when Rachel finished. First, we document everything in that vault. Professional appraisals, photographs, complete inventory. We establish the chain of custody and prove you're managing the estate responsibly. Second, Robert added, we build your defense. Medical evaluations proving your competency. Character witnesses testifying to your parenting. Documentation of everything your siblings have done, including that GPS tracker threat Brandon made. Third, Patricia continued, we find out how Victoria learned about the vault. Someone talked, someone told her. We need to know who. Rachel's stomach turned. You think someone betrayed us? Information doesn't leak by accident when this much money is involved. Patricia's eyes were hard. Someone saw something or heard something and made a call. We need to find out who. The answer came faster than anyone expected. Betty Sullivan, the librarian from Cedar Falls, showed up at the cabin that afternoon. Her face was pale with guilt. I'm so sorry, she said before Rachel could even greet her. I didn't know. I didn't understand what I was doing. What happened? A woman called the library yesterday, said she was your sister, said she was trying to reach you, but your phone wasn't working. Betty's voice trembled. "She asked questions about Nathan about the cabin. I thought I was helping. I mentioned that you'd found something valuable, that Nathan had left more than just the property." Rachel felt sick. "What exactly did you tell her?" "Just that you seemed overwhelmed, that you'd discovered something in the cabin that made you emotional." Betty's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't give details. I didn't know about the vault. But I must have said enough for her to figure it out." "It's not your fault." Rachel forced herself to say the words even though she wanted to scream. "You didn't know who she was, what she was capable of." "I should have been more careful. Nathan trusted this community to protect whoever inherited his cabin, and I failed." Patricia stood up from the table. "This is actually useful. We can prove they used deception to gather information. That's not going to play well in court." "They'll claim they were just concerned family members," Robert said. "They'll claim a lot of things. Our job is to make sure none of it sticks." The next 48 hours were a blur. Rachel submitted to a psychological evaluation by a Helena psychiatrist, answering questions for 3 hours while Emma waited in the lobby. The doctor's conclusion: Rachel was intelligent, competent, and showed remarkable resilience under extraordinary circumstances. Robert gathered character witnesses. Sister Catherine drove from Portland to testify about Rachel's strength during her years at the shelter. Emma's teacher from Oregon provided records showing perfect attendance despite homelessness. The mechanic from Cedar Falls, who'd already serviced the Honda, spoke about Rachel's determination and grace under pressure. Patricia documented the vault's contents with a professional appraiser, every item photographed, cataloged, and valued. The total came to just under $270 million when current market conditions were applied. Nathan's estimates had been conservative. And then Harold Finch found something else. He arrived at the cabin on the evening of the second day carrying a small fireproof safe. "This was hidden in Nathan's workshop," he said, "behind a false panel. I missed it during the initial inventory." The safe required a combination. Emma figured it out within an hour using dates from Nathan's war medals and journal entries. Inside was a VHS tape, a letter, and a key to a safety deposit box in Helena. The letter was brief. "If you're watching this, the wolves have arrived. I recorded this knowing exactly what would happen. Show it in court if necessary." They found an old VCR in the cabin's attic, hooked it to a small television Nathan had apparently kept for weather reports. Rachel pressed play. Nathan's face filled the screen. He was sitting at the desk in the vault surrounded by his collection. His eyes were clear and sharp despite his age. "My name is Nathan James Turner. Today is August 20th, 2024. I am of sound mind and body, as my doctor can confirm. I am making this recording because I know what will happen after my death." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "My family will come for what I've built, not because they need it, not because they deserve it, but because they believe wealth should flow to blood regardless of character." His voice hardened. "I've watched them for decades. I've seen them take from Rachel over and over. I've seen them abandon her when she needed help. I've seen them lie and manipulate and destroy without conscience." Nathan leaned forward. "Rachel Turner is the sole beneficiary of my estate because she earned it. Not through blood, through character, through being the kind of person who gives. Without keeping score in a family that only knows how to take." He sat back. "To any court reviewing this recording, I was a veteran, an accountant, a collector. I built this fortune over 67 years with full mental capacity. I made this decision with clear understanding of what I was doing and why. My wishes are explicit. Rachel Turner and her daughter Emma inherit everything. No one else. Any attempt to invalidate this will is an attempt to steal from good people by bad ones." His final words hit like a hammer. "Blood doesn't make family. Character does. And I have never met anyone with more character than Rachel Turner. Protect her from the wolves. She has spent her whole life protecting everyone else." The tape ended. Rachel sat in silence, tears streaming down her face. Nathan had known, had predicted everything her siblings would do, had prepared evidence to defend her from beyond the grave. "This is devastating," Patricia said quietly. "They can't claim incompetence after watching this. They can't claim anything after watching this." "We wait," Robert said. "We let them make their move, and then we destroy them." The move came on the morning of the third day. 3 rental SUVs came up the Forest Service Road trailing dust. Victoria's BMW followed behind. Rachel stood on the porch with Emma beside her, watching her siblings arrive. Victoria emerged first, navy suit perfectly tailored. Brandon followed, red-faced and aggressive. Megan stayed in the background, practicing her concerned expression. A man in an expensive suit carried a thick briefcase. "Rachel," Victoria smiled as she climbed the steps. "You look terrible. Pregnancy doesn't agree with you. Get off my property. Our property. Or it will be soon enough. Victoria turned to the man with the briefcase. Gerald, give her the papers. The man stepped forward. Ms. Turner, I'm Gerald Thorne. I represent your siblings in this matter. We're filing a petition for guardianship based on concerns about your capacity to manage a substantial estate. He handed Rachel a thick stack of documents. Your history of housing instability, financial difficulties, and current situation as a pregnant single mother in a remote cabin with no proper medical care raises serious questions about your judgment. I have attorneys, Rachel said. You can deal with them. We'd prefer to deal with you. Victoria's smile widened. Sign over the property and the collection voluntarily, and this all goes away. Keep fighting and we'll take everything, including Emma. Emma stepped forward, small and fierce. You can't take me. I'm not yours. I'm my mom's. Children don't get to decide what's best for them. Victoria's voice dripped condescension. Adults do, and the adults in this situation have concerns about your mother's ability to provide for you. My mom provides for me better than anyone. She kept me safe when we had nothing. She drove us across the country. She found us a home. Emma's voice shook but didn't break. What have you ever done except steal and lie? Victoria's face went ugly for a moment before she smoothed it back into false concern. We're trying to help Emma. Your mother isn't well. She needs support. We're family. You're not family. Emma's voice rose. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't threaten. Family doesn't abandon people and then show up when there's money to take. That's enough. Brandon stepped forward, his face red with anger. Rachel, control your daughter or I'll... You'll what? Patricia Ortega emerged from the cabin, Robert Kane beside her. Threaten a child in front of witnesses. Please continue. I'm documenting everything. Victoria's expression flickered. Who are you? Patricia Ortega, estate law. And this is Robert Kane, family law defense. Patricia smiled, all teeth. Your sister has representation. Very good representation. So unless you want to explain to a judge why you threatened an 8-year-old on her own property, I suggest you leave. This isn't over, Brandon snarled. No, it isn't. Patricia held up her phone. But the next conversation happens in court, where we'll show exactly what kind of people you are. Victoria's mask cracked completely. You think you can win this? You think some small-town lawyers can beat us? We have resources. We have connections. You have nothing. Rachel's voice was quiet but steady. Nathan knew exactly what you would do. He prepared for it. He left evidence that will destroy you in court. What evidence? You'll see, when the judge sees it. When everyone sees the kind of people you really are. Victoria's face went pale. For the first time, Rachel saw fear in her sister's eyes. This isn't over, Victoria repeated. But her voice had lost its certainty. No, Rachel agreed. It's not, but when it is, you'll have nothing. No inheritance, no reputation, nothing. She watched her siblings retreat to their vehicles, watched them drive away down the mountain road, watched until the dust settled and the silence returned. Then she put her hand on her belly, felt her baby kick, and allowed herself to believe that maybe finally she was going to win. The weeks that followed were the longest of Rachel's life. She woke every morning with her heart pounding, checking her phone for messages from Patricia or Robert, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The baby grew heavier inside her. 8 months now. 8 months of life demanding space in a body that was running on fear and determination. Emma tried to keep busy. She explored every inch of the cabin, documented the wildlife in her notebook, learned to pump water and build fires. But Rachel caught her daughter watching the road, sometimes waiting for the rental SUVs to reappear. They're not coming back today, Rachel said on one of those afternoons. How do you know? Because we would have heard from the lawyers first. That's how these things work. I hate waiting. Emma's voice was tight. I hate not knowing what's going to happen. Me too, baby. Me too. The call from Patricia came on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after Victoria's visit to the cabin. They filed, Patricia said, petition for guardianship of Rachel Turner based on mental incompetence, separate petition for custody of Emma Turner based on parental unfitness, and a motion to invalidate Nathan's will based on undue influence and testator incapacity. Rachel's legs went weak. She sat down hard on Nathan's chair. All three at once. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. It's a common tactic with these kinds of predatory lawsuits. Patricia's voice was calm, professional. The good news is they've tipped their hand. We know exactly what they're planning to argue. What's the bad news? Court date is in 3 weeks. That's fast. Someone pulled strings to get it expedited. Can they do that? Money can do a lot of things, Rachel, but it can't change the truth, and the truth is on our side. 3 weeks, 21 days to prepare for a battle that would determine everything. The cabin, the collection, Emma, the baby growing inside her. Rachel put her hand on her belly and felt her child kick. "Tell me what to do," she said. "Tell me exactly what to do and I'll do it." The preparation was exhausting. Rachel sat through depositions that lasted hours answering the same questions over and over. Where did she live before the cabin? How long was she homeless? What were her financial circumstances? Did she have any history of mental illness? Had she ever been evaluated by a psychiatrist, Gerald Thorne? Victoria's lawyer was relentless. He dug into every painful detail of her past, trying to build a picture of a woman too broken to manage her own affairs. "Ms. Turner, you were evicted from your apartment in Portland in March of 2023, is that correct?" "Yes." "And the reason for that eviction was failure to pay rent?" "Yes." "And prior to that eviction, you had borrowed money from your siblings. Is that correct?" "I gave them money, not borrowed, gave." "But they characterize those transactions as loans." "They can characterize them however they want. I know what happened." "What happened, Ms. Turner?" Rachel looked directly at Thorne. "I gave my siblings $87,000 over 2 years. They said they needed it for medical bills, for emergencies, for things that turned out not to exist. They promised to pay me back. They never did. And when I needed help, when I was about to be thrown out on the street with my daughter, they blocked my phone number." "That's your interpretation of events." "That's what happened." Robert objected to almost everything Thorne asked, but the questions kept coming. Hours of them, days of them. By the end, Rachel felt like she'd been turned inside out. Every failure, every struggle, every moment of weakness laid bare for strangers to judge. "You did well," Robert told her afterward. "Better than most people do under that kind of pressure." "I don't feel like I did well. I feel like I've been run over by a truck." "That's how depositions are supposed to make you feel. Thorne was trying to break you. He didn't." The night before the court date, Rachel couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario in her mind. What if the judge believed Victoria? What if they took Emma? What if she went into labor during the trial and everything fell apart? A small knock at the door made her sit up. "Mom," Emma's voice was quiet. "Can I come in?" "Of course, baby." Emma climbed into bed beside her, pressing close. "I can't sleep either," Emma said. "Worried about tomorrow." "Yeah." Rachel pulled her daughter close. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to remember something. You are the bravest person I know. You've survived things that would break most adults. And no matter what any judge says, no matter what your aunts and uncles try to do, you are mine. You will always be mine." "What if they take me away?" "They won't." "But what if they do?" Rachel felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "Then I will fight every single day until I get you back. I will never stop fighting. I will never give up on you. Do you understand?" Emma nodded against her chest. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, baby, more than anything in the world." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, the baby kicking gently between them. The Jefferson County Courthouse stood in downtown Helena, a stone building that had seen 100 years of disputes and heartbreaks. Rachel walked up the steps at 8:30 in the morning, Emma's hand tight in hers, Patricia and Robert flanking them like shields. Her belly was huge now, 8.5 months. The baby could come any day. The doctor in Helena had warned her against stress, against exertion, against anything that might trigger early labor. She was walking into the most stressful day of her life. "Remember," Patricia said as they approached the courtroom doors, "stay calm. Answer only what's asked. Don't let Thorne provoke you. And if I feel the baby coming, then we stop. Nothing is more important than your health." The courtroom was already full when they entered. Victoria sat at the plaintiff's table, perfect in a gray suit, her expression carefully composed into concern. Brandon sat beside her, red-faced as always. Megan was in the gallery, practicing her worried sister act for anyone who would watch. But they weren't alone. The gallery was packed with people Rachel recognized. Betty Sullivan from the library, Sheriff Tom Whitaker in full uniform, the mechanic who'd serviced the Honda, the doctor from the Helena clinic, the midwife who'd volunteered to deliver the baby, Sister Catherine who'd driven 3 hours from Portland. Half of Cedar Falls had come to support her. Rachel felt tears prick her eyes as she walked to the defense table. "You're not alone," Robert said quietly. "Remember that." Judge Carolyn Winters entered at 9 sharp. Silver hair, stern expression, the bearing of someone who had presided over enough family battles to have developed immunity to manipulation. "This court will come to order. Case number 74-92, petition for guardianship of Rachel Turner, petition for custody of minor child Emma Turner, and motion to invalidate the last will and testament of Nathan James Turner. She looked at both tables. I've read the briefs, I've reviewed the depositions. This is going to be a difficult case with strong emotions on both sides. I expect everyone to conduct themselves professionally. Mr. Thorne, you filed the petitions. Present your case. Gerald Thorne stood smoothing his expensive suit. Your Honor, we're here today because a vulnerable woman has been manipulated into believing she's capable of managing a $265 million estate. Rachel Turner has a documented history of housing instability, financial mismanagement, and poor decision-making. She was homeless for nearly a year. She is currently pregnant with no partner to support her. She's raising a minor child in a remote cabin with no proper medical facilities within an hour's drive. He paused, letting the words sink in. Nathan Turner was a 91-year-old man living alone in the wilderness. He had no close relationships, no regular contact with family, no one to verify his mental state. We believe he was suffering from cognitive decline in his final years and that Rachel Turner, whether intentionally or not, exerted undue influence over a vulnerable elderly man. That's a lie, Emma's voice rang out from beside Rachel. Judge Winter's gavel came down. Young lady, there will be no outburst in my courtroom. But he's lying. Uncle Nathan wasn't crazy. He knew exactly what he was doing. Emma, Rachel put her hand on her daughter's arm. It's okay. They'll get their turn. Emma's face was red with fury, but she fell silent. Thorne continued as if nothing had happened. We're asking this court to appoint Victoria Mitchell as guardian of Rachel Turner's person and estate to transfer custody of Emma Turner to appropriate family members and to invalidate Nathan Turner's will so that his estate can be properly distributed among his surviving relatives. He sat down. Judge Winters looked at Robert. Defense? Robert stood. Your Honor, this case isn't about protecting vulnerable people. It's about greed. The petitioners are 3 individuals who systematically stole $87,000 from their own sister, abandoned her when she became homeless, and now want access to an inheritance they have no legal right to. Objection, Thorne said, inflammatory. Sustained. Keep it factual, Mr. Kane. The facts are these. Your Honor, Rachel Turner survived 11 months of homelessness while keeping her daughter safe, enrolled in school, and emotionally healthy. She drove across the country with nothing but hope and arrived in Montana to find not just a cabin, but evidence of her great-uncle's clear and deliberate wishes. Nathan Turner was not cognitively impaired. He was not manipulated. He made a choice based on decades of observation, and his choice was Rachel. Robert held up a folder. We have medical evaluations proving Rachel's complete mental competency. We have financial records showing the systematic theft perpetrated by the petitioners. We have character witnesses from across the country testifying to Rachel's capability and integrity. And we have something else. Something Nathan Turner left specifically for this moment. Thorne leaned forward. What evidence? A video recording made by Nathan Turner 6 months before his death, predicting exactly what would happen and explaining exactly why he chose Rachel as his sole beneficiary. Victoria's face went pale. The morning session was brutal. Thorne called witness after witness to paint a picture of Rachel as incompetent and unstable. A landlord from Portland testified about the eviction. A former employer described the job loss. A psychologist Thorne had hired offered opinions about trauma and decision-making capacity, but Robert cross-examined each one, finding cracks in every story. You evicted Ms. Turner for non-payment of rent. Did she ever explain why she couldn't pay? She said something about family, money she was owed. Did you verify that claim? That wasn't my job. So you have no idea whether she was telling the truth about being owed money by family members? No. No further questions. The former employer admitted Rachel had been an excellent worker until her personal circumstances made it impossible to continue. The psychologist admitted he had never actually evaluated Rachel, only reviewed documents provided by the petitioners. By noon, Thorne's case was looking weaker than it had at 9 o'clock, but then Victoria took the stand. Ms. Mitchell, Thorne said, please describe your relationship with your sister. Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. We were close growing up. Rachel was always the sensitive one, the one who felt things too deeply. I tried to help her over the years, but she pushed me away. Help her how? Financial support, emotional support. When she was struggling, I offered to let her stay with me. She refused. She was too proud. Rachel's hands clenched under the table. Every word was a lie. Every single word. Did you loan her money? Yes, several times. She always promised to pay it back, but she never did. I didn't mind at first, but it became a pattern. Take the money, make promises, disappear. Objection. Robert stood. The witness is mischaracterizing documented facts. I'll allow it, Judge Winters said. The witness may state her recollection. You can challenge it on cross. Victoria continued building a story of a troubled sister who couldn't manage her own life, who made bad decisions, who needed protection from herself. By the time Thorne finished, Rachel felt sick. Robert stood for cross-examination. Ms. Mitchell, you testified that you offered your sister financial support. Can you be more specific about the amounts? I don't remember exactly. A few thousand here and there. Would it surprise you to learn that we have bank records showing transfers totaling $87,000 from Rachel Turner to you, Brandon Mitchell, and Megan Hayes over a 2-year period? Victoria's face flickered. That can't be right. I have the records here, Your Honor. Robert handed a folder to the bailiff. Every transaction dated and documented. Judge Winters reviewed the papers. Ms. Mitchell, these appear to show money flowing from Rachel Turner to you, not the other way around. There must be some mistake. No mistake. Robert's voice was sharp. You took $87,000 from your sister. You promised to pay it back. You never did. And when she became homeless, you blocked her phone number. That's not... We have the phone records too. Would you like to see them? Victoria's composure cracked. She was calling constantly, begging for money. I couldn't deal with it. So you admit you blocked her calls while she was homeless with a child. I had my own problems. Your own problems. Robert let the words hang in the air. Ms. Mitchell, what is your current net worth? Thorne objected, but the judge allowed the question. Victoria's jaw tightened. I don't see how that's relevant. It's relevant because you're asking this court to believe you acted out of concern for your sister, not greed. So I'll ask again. What is your current net worth? Approximately $4 million. $4 million. And you couldn't spare anything to help your homeless pregnant sister. It wasn't that simple. I think it was exactly that simple. No further questions. The afternoon brought the character witnesses. Sister Catherine took the stand first, her silver hair and kind eyes lending weight to every word. I've known Rachel Turner for 10 years. She came to my shelter fleeing domestic violence when Emma was an infant. She worked 2 jobs while attending nursing school. She gave back to our community even when she had almost nothing. What was your impression of her when she returned to the shelter 2 years ago? Devastated but not broken. She'd been betrayed by people she trusted and she was struggling. But she never lost her dignity. She never stopped fighting for her daughter. In your professional opinion, is Rachel Turner capable of managing her own affairs? Rachel Turner is one of the most capable women I've ever met. Using her past struggles as evidence of incompetence is not just wrong, it's obscene. Emma's teacher testified next. Then the doctor from Helena, then Sheriff Whitaker, then person after person from Cedar Falls who had watched Rachel arrive with nothing and build a life through sheer determination. By 4 o'clock, the tide had clearly turned. But Thorne had one more card to play. Your Honor, we'd like to call Emma Turner to the stand. Rachel's blood went cold. You can't put my daughter through that. The child is central to this case, Thorne said. Her testimony is relevant. Judge Winters looked at Emma, who sat rigid beside Rachel. Young lady, do you want to testify? Emma stood. Yes. Are you sure you don't have to? I want to. Emma's voice was steady. I want everyone to know the truth. Rachel wanted to stop her, wanted to protect her from what Thorne would try to do, but she saw the determination in her daughter's eyes and knew that Emma needed this, needed to speak for herself. I'll allow it, Judge Winters said, but I will not tolerate badgering of a minor. Understood, Mr. Thorne? Of course, Your Honor. Emma walked to the witness stand, small and brave, and raised her hand for the oath. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thorne approached with his professional smile. Emma, how old are you? 8. And you've been living with your mother in a cabin in the woods. What's that like? It's the best place I've ever lived. The best place, better than a house with running water and electricity. We have water from a well and electricity from solar panels. Uncle Nathan set it all up. But it's very remote. Aren't you lonely? I was lonelier in the parking lot. Emma's voice didn't waver. At least here I have a real bed and a real room, and I don't have to lie to my friends about where I live. Thorne's smile tightened. Speaking of the parking lot, you lived in a car for almost a year. That must have been scary. Sometimes, but Mom always made me feel safe. Even when you didn't have enough to eat, Mom always made sure I ate, even when she didn't. Your mother didn't eat. She gave me her food. She thought I didn't notice, but I did. Emma's eyes found Rachel's across the courtroom. She gave me everything she had, always. Emma, your aunts and uncles are worried about you. They want to make sure you're safe. They weren't worried when we were in the parking lot. Emma's voice rose. They weren't worried when Mom called asking for help and they blocked her number. They're only worried now because there's money. That's not fair. It's true. Emma's chin lifted. Aunt Victoria took Mom's money and didn't pay it back. Uncle Brandon threatened to take me away. Aunt Megan pretended like we didn't exist. They're not worried about me. They're greedy. Emma, Uncle Nathan saw what they were. That's why he left everything to us and not them. Because Mom is a good person and they're not. Thorne tried to recover, asking more questions, but Emma answered each one with the same fierce honesty. When he finally gave up, Robert stood for cross-examination. Emma, you found the hidden room in the cabin, the one with Uncle Nathan's collection. Can you tell the court about that? I noticed the measurements were wrong. 4 feet of space was missing, so I looked for a secret door and found it behind the fireplace. What did you think when you saw what was inside? I thought Uncle Nathan must have been really smart and really patient. He collected all those things over his whole life. Did you find anything else in the vault? Any messages from Uncle Nathan? Emma nodded. A letter for me. Robert handed her a piece of paper. Can you read it to the court? Emma unfolded the letter and began to read, her young voice filling the courtroom. Dear Emma, if you're reading this, you found my hidden room. You must be clever and curious, which are fine qualities. This room holds many valuable things, but the most valuable thing is the family who found it together. She paused, her voice catching. I never had children of my own, but I watched your mother raise you. I saw how much she gave to make sure you were fed and safe and loved. I hope you know how lucky you are to have her, and I hope she knows how lucky she is to have you. Tears were streaming down Emma's face now, but she kept reading. Whatever happens with this collection, remember that your mother is a good person in a world that often punishes good people. Protect her. She has spent her whole life protecting you. Be brave, little one. The world needs more brave children. Your friend across time, Nathan. Emma looked up from the letter. Uncle Nathan knew what my aunts and uncles would do. He knew they would try to take everything, and he wanted me to be brave enough to stop them. The courtroom was silent. Judge Winters cleared her throat. Thank you, Emma. You may step down. Emma walked back to Rachel, and Rachel pulled her into a fierce hug. I'm proud of you, Rachel whispered. So proud. I told the truth, like Uncle Nathan wanted. You were perfect. You were absolutely perfect. Robert stood. Your Honor, we have one final piece of evidence, a video recording made by Nathan Turner 6 months before his death. A television was wheeled into the courtroom. The VHS tape was inserted. The screen flickered to life. Nathan's face appeared sitting at the desk in the vault surrounded by his collection. My name is Nathan James Turner. Today is August 20th, 2024. I am of sound mind and body, as my doctor can confirm. I am making this recording because I know what will happen after my death. His eyes were clear, sharp, completely lucid. My family will come for what I've built, not because they need it, not because they deserve it, but because they believe wealth should flow to blood regardless of character. Victoria shifted in her seat. Brandon's face went red. I've watched them for decades. I've seen them take from Rachel over and over. I've seen them abandon her when she needed help. I've seen them lie and manipulate and destroy without conscience. Nathan leaned toward the camera. Rachel Turner is the sole beneficiary of my estate because she earned it, not through blood, through character, through being the kind of person who gives without keeping score in a family that only knows how to take. His voice hardened. To any court reviewing this recording, I was a veteran, an accountant, a collector. I built this fortune over 67 years with full mental capacity. I made this decision with clear understanding of what I was doing and why. My wishes are explicit. Rachel Turner and her daughter Emma inherit everything, no one else. He sat back. Any attempt to invalidate this will is an attempt to steal from good people by bad ones. I have never met anyone with more character than Rachel Turner. Protect her from the wolves. She has spent her whole life protecting everyone else. His final words hit the courtroom like thunder. Blood doesn't make family. Character does. The screen went dark. Judge Winters sat in silence for a long moment. Then she turned to Victoria, Brandon, and Megan with eyes that could have frozen water. I've heard enough. I've seen enough." Her voice was ice. "You came into my courtroom, claiming concern for your sister, but what I've seen today is greed, deception, and a coordinated attempt to steal an inheritance from a woman you already victimized for years." Victoria opened her mouth to speak. "Don't." The judge's voice cracked like a whip. "I've watched you lie on the stand. I've seen the evidence of financial theft. I've heard testimony from people who actually know Rachel Turner, who can actually speak to her character." She turned to Rachel. "Ms. Turner, I find no basis whatsoever for these petitions. Your competence is not in question. Your fitness as a mother is not in question. Nathan Turner's mental capacity is not in question. His video makes clear that he understood exactly what he was doing and why." The gavel came down. Petition for guardianship is denied. Petition for custody is denied. Motion to invalidate the will is denied. Judge Winter's voice carried through the courtroom. Furthermore, petitioners are ordered to pay all legal fees incurred by Rachel Turner in defending against these frivolous actions. Any further harassment will result in restraining orders and potential criminal charges. She looked at Victoria with contempt. "Your cousin saw you coming from decades away. He protected his chosen heir with remarkable care. You should be ashamed of yourselves." Victoria's face was white. Brandon looked like he might have a stroke. Megan was crying, but for once the tears seemed real. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down one final time. The Cedar Falls contingent erupted in applause. Betty Sullivan was crying. Sheriff Whitaker was smiling. Sister Catherine had her hands clasped in prayer. Rachel sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. "Mom," Emma's voice was shaking. "Mom, we won. We won, baby." Rachel's voice cracked. "We actually won." She pulled her daughter into her arms and held on tight. They had won. Nathan's protection had held. The wall he built around them had proven stronger than her siblings' greed. Patricia appeared beside them, her professional demeanor cracking into a genuine smile. "That was decisive. They have no grounds for appeal. It's over." "It's really over. It's really over. The cabin is yours. The collection is yours. Emma is yours. No one can take any of it." Rachel started crying. Deep, racking sobs that shook her whole body. Emma held her on one side, Patricia on the other. All the fear, all the stress, all the months of wondering if she would lose everything, it all came pouring out. "You did it," Patricia said quietly. "You survived everything they threw at you." "Nathan did it." Rachel wiped her face. "He planned everything. He knew exactly what would happen." "Nathan gave you the tools. You're the one who used them." Rachel looked across the courtroom. Victoria was gathering her things, her face a mask of fury and humiliation. Brandon was arguing with Thorne about something, his voice rising. Megan was still crying, being comforted by no one. They had tried to destroy her. They had tried to take her daughter, her home, her inheritance, her dignity. And they had failed. Rachel stood one hand on her belly and walked toward her siblings. Victoria looked up, her expression shifting to something between fear and hatred. "Come to gloat," Victoria spat. "No," Rachel's voice was calm. "I came to tell you something. I don't want to hear anything from you. You're going to hear it anyway." Rachel met her sister's eyes. "I spent years believing I was the problem, that I was too trusting, too soft, too stupid to protect myself from people like you. I let you take everything I had because I believed that's what family did." She took a breath. "But Nathan saw the truth. He saw that I wasn't the broken one. You were. All of you. And he decided I deserved better. He was a senile old man. He was a brilliant man who watched you for decades and judged you for what you are." Rachel's voice didn't waver. "Thieves, liars, people who take and never give anything back." Victoria's face twisted. "You think you're better than us? I know I am, because I would never do to you what you tried to do to me." "Tight." Rachel turned and walked back to Emma, to Patricia, to the people who had supported her through the worst days of her life. Behind her, she heard Victoria's voice, bitter and defeated. "This isn't over, Rachel." But they both knew it was. Outside the courthouse, Rachel stood in the afternoon sun, breathing clean Montana air. Emma held her hand. The baby kicked inside her. Sheriff Whitaker approached, his weathered face creased with a smile. "Ms. Turner, I want you to know something. This community has your back. Whatever you need, whenever you need it, you just ask." "Thank you, Sheriff, for everything. Thank Nathan. He loved this town, and he knew this town would love anyone he chose to send here." The drive back to the cabin took longer than usual. Rachel pulled over twice just to sit and breathe to let the reality sink in. It was over. She had won. Her siblings would never threaten her again. The cabin was hers. The collection was hers. Emma was hers. They were safe. When they finally reached the clearing, when Rachel saw the cabin standing solid and beautiful against the mountains, she started crying again. "Mom?" Emma's voice was worried. "Why are you still crying?" "Because I'm happy, baby." Rachel laughed through her tears. "I'm so happy, I don't know what to do with it." They walked to the porch together, mother and daughter. Rachel put her hand on the door. "We're home, Emma. We're really finally permanently home." Emma hugged her fiercely. "Uncle Nathan knew," Emma said. "He knew we needed this. He was waiting to help us." Rachel looked at the cabin that Nathan had built with his own hands, at the land he had protected for 67 years, at the life he had given them from beyond the grave. "He was waiting," she agreed. "And now we're going to make him proud." The baby kicked hard, as if in agreement. And for the first time in years, Rachel Turner felt truly at peace. The peace lasted exactly 72 hours. Rachel spent those 3 days in a state of shock, unable to fully believe what had happened. She walked through the cabin, touching walls, running her hands over Nathan's furniture, opening and closing doors just to prove they were real. Emma watched her with worried eyes, but said nothing, giving her mother space to process. On the 4th morning after the trial, Rachel woke to cramping. Sharp, sudden pain that ripped through her belly and made her gasp out loud. She lay in bed, hands pressed against her stomach, feeling the baby move restlessly inside her. "No," she whispered. "Not yet. Please, not yet." The cramping eased after a few minutes, but Rachel didn't move. She stayed perfectly still, breathing slowly, willing her body to cooperate. 8.5 months. Too early. The baby wasn't ready. "Mom!" Emma's voice came through the door. "Are you okay? I heard you make a noise." "I'm fine, baby. Just some cramps." Should I call someone? Rachel forced herself to sit up. The pain was fading, but fear had taken its place. She was alone in the woods with an 8-year-old more than an hour from the nearest hospital, and her body was sending warning signals. "Can you get me my phone?" Emma brought it immediately, her face pale with concern. "Is the baby coming?" "I don't think so, but I want to talk to Helen just in case." Helen Torres, the midwife from Cedar Falls, answered on the second ring. "Rachel, is everything all right?" "I had some cramping, sharp pain that lasted a few minutes. It's stopped now, but I'm worried." "How many weeks are you?" 36. "Any bleeding? Any fluid leaking?" "No, nothing like that." Helen's voice was calm and reassuring. "It sounds like Braxton Hicks contractions. Practice contractions, very common in the last month. But I want you to rest today. Stay off your feet. Drink plenty of water. If the cramping comes back or gets worse, call me immediately." "Okay?" "Rachel, you've been under tremendous stress. Your body is telling you to slow down. Listen to it." Rachel hung up and looked at Emma, who was hovering in the doorway. "The baby's okay," Rachel said, "but I need to rest today." "I'll take care of everything." Emma's face was determined. "I can make breakfast, I can pump water, I can do the fire." "You're 8 years old. You shouldn't have to take care of me." "You took care of me when you were pregnant and homeless and had nothing." Emma crossed her arms. "Let me help." Rachel felt tears prick her eyes. This child, this incredible, impossible child who had grown up too fast and carried too much, but somehow still had so much love to give. "Okay, baby, thank you." Emma spent the morning playing nurse. She brought Rachel water every hour, made sandwiches for lunch, kept the fire going, and checked on her mother so often that Rachel finally had to tell her to stop. "I'm fine, Emma, really. You don't have to look at me every 5 minutes. I'm making sure you're still breathing." "I'm breathing, I promise." Emma sat down on the edge of the bed, her expression suddenly serious. "Mom, can I ask you something? Always? Now that we have money, are you going to change?" The question caught Rachel off guard. "Change how?" "I don't know. Some people get weird when they have a lot of money. They start caring about different things. They forget who they were before." Rachel reached out and took her daughter's hand. "Emma, listen to me. Money doesn't change who you are. It just reveals who you've always been. Your aunts and uncles were greedy and selfish before they tried to take Nathan's inheritance. The money just gave them an excuse to show it. What about you? I'm going to use the money to help people. That's what Nathan wanted. That's what I want." Rachel squeezed Emma's hand. "I'm never going to forget what it felt like to be homeless, to be hungry, to be terrified that I couldn't protect you. and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure other mothers don't have to feel that way." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Like a foundation?" "Exactly like a foundation, for single mothers who need help getting back on their feet." "Can I help?" "I'm counting on it." The phone rang that afternoon. Rachel looked at the screen and felt her stomach drop. The number was familiar, one she hadn't seen in over a year. Daniel, her youngest brother, the one who had withdrawn from the lawsuit, the one who hadn't shown up at the trial. She answered cautiously. "Daniel, were you—" "Rachel." His voice was rough, uncertain. "I heard about the trial. I heard you won." "I did." "I'm glad." He paused. "I wanted to call and tell you that I'm sorry for everything, for taking your money, for not being there when you needed help, for all of it." Rachel didn't know what to say. Daniel had always been the quietest of her siblings, the one who went along with whatever Victoria and Brandon decided. She'd never hated him the way she hated the others, but she'd never trusted him either. "Why are you calling now, Chip?" "Because I should have called a long time ago, because I watched them plan this lawsuit and I knew it was wrong and I didn't say anything until it was almost too late." "You withdrew your name from the petition." "I did, but I should have done more. I should have warned you. I should have stood up and told them to stop." His voice cracked. "I was a coward, Rachel. I've always been a coward, and I'm tired of it." Rachel sat in silence, processing his words. Part of her wanted to forgive him. Part of her wanted to scream at him. Part of her just wanted to hang up and never think about him again. "What do you want from me, Daniel?" "Nothing. I don't want anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm not like them. I don't want your money. I don't want the cabin. I just want you to know that someone in this family is sorry for what we did to you." "Are you in contact with Victoria and Brandon?" Daniel hesitated. "Not anymore. They've cut me off. When I withdrew from the petition, Victoria told me I was dead to her." "What about Megan?" "Megan does whatever Victoria tells her. She hasn't spoken to me since the trial." Rachel closed her eyes. Her family was shattered or broken beyond repair by greed and betrayal. Part of her mourned that. Part of her felt nothing at all. "Daniel, I don't know if I can forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I appreciate you calling." "I understand." His voice was quiet. "Rachel, there's something else you should know." "What?" "Victoria isn't giving up. She's already talking to other lawyers about finding grounds for appeal. She's convinced there's a way to get the inheritance. She's obsessed with it." Rachel's heart started pounding. "She can't appeal. The judge dismissed everything. I know, but Victoria doesn't accept no for an answer. She's going to keep trying, keep digging, keep looking for ways to hurt you." Daniel's voice dropped. "Be careful. She's more dangerous than you think." The call ended, and Rachel sat staring at her phone. It wasn't over. Even after everything, even after the trial and the evidence and the judge's ruling, Victoria wasn't going to stop. "Mom?" Emma appeared in the doorway. "Who was that?" "Your Uncle Daniel." "What did he want?" Rachel looked at her daughter's worried face and made a decision. She wasn't going to lie, but she wasn't going to burden Emma with fear either. "He called to apologize and to warn us that Aunt Victoria might try again." Emma's jaw set. "Let her try. We beat her once, we'll beat her again." "You're right, we will." Rachel held out her arms. "Come here." Emma climbed onto the bed and curled against her mother's side. "Mom, I'm not scared of them anymore." "Neither am I, baby. Neither am I." The cramping came back that night. Worse this time. Sharper. Rachel woke at 2 a.m, gasping, her whole body clenched with pain. "No," she moaned. "No, no, no." She fumbled for her phone, called Helen, could barely speak through the contractions. "I'm coming," Helen said. "Don't move. I'm on my way." Emma woke to the sound of her mother's cries. She ran into the room, saw Rachel doubled over in pain, and her face went white. "Mom, what's happening?" "The baby!" Rachel gritted her teeth. "The baby might be coming." "What do I do?" "Get towels, hot water, the things Helen told us to prepare." Rachel grabbed Emma's hand. "You can do this, baby. I need you to be brave." Emma's terror transformed into determination. She ran to gather supplies while Rachel breathed through the contractions, trying to stay calm, trying not to panic. Too early. 4 weeks too early. The baby wasn't ready, but the baby was coming anyway. Helen arrived 40 minutes later, her medical bag in hand, her face calm despite the urgency. She examined Rachel quickly, professionally. "You're in labor. Early labor, but definitely labor. It's too soon. 36 weeks is borderline. The baby will be small but viable. We can do this here, or we can try to get you to the hospital in Helena. Another contraction hit and Rachel cried out. There's no time, Helen said. We're doing this here. The next 6 hours were the longest of Rachel's life. Labor was nothing like she remembered from Emma's birth. That had been in a hospital with doctors and drugs and machines monitoring everything. This was raw and primal and terrifying. Helen talked her through every contraction, every push, every moment of fear. Emma stayed at her mother's side, holding her hand, refusing to leave, even when Helen suggested she wait in the other room. I'm not leaving her, Emma said fiercely. She needs me. Then you stay, but it's going to get intense. I can handle it. At 8 in the morning, after a night that seemed to last forever, Rachel felt the baby crown. One more push, Helen said. One more big push and you'll meet your daughter. Rachel bore down with everything she had, screaming with the effort. And then suddenly there was crying. A new voice in the world, thin and reedy and absolutely perfect. She's here. Helen held up a tiny, squalling infant. She's small, but she's breathing on her own. 10 fingers, 10 toes. She's beautiful, Rachel. Rachel reached for her daughter, tears streaming down her face. The baby was placed on her chest, warm and wiggling and alive. Hello, Rachel whispered. Hello, little one. I'm your mom. Emma leaned in her eyes, huge with wonder. She's so tiny. She's perfect. Rachel looked at her older daughter. Emma, meet your sister? What's her name? Rachel had been thinking about names for months. She'd made lists, crossed things out, started over. But in this moment, holding her newborn daughter in the cabin that Nathan had given them, there was only one name that made sense. Hope, Rachel said. Her name is Hope. Emma smiled, tears running down her cheeks. That's perfect, Mom. That's absolutely perfect. Hope Turner weighed 5 pounds, 4 ounces. Small but healthy, strong enough to breathe on her own, to nurse, to grip her mother's finger with surprising strength. Helen stayed for 2 days monitoring both Rachel and the baby, making sure there were no complications. By the time she left, Rachel was exhausted, but grateful. You did amazing, Helen said. Both of you. That was not an easy birth. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you know, Rachel Turner. Helen smiled. Nathan knew it too. That's why he chose you. The first week with Hope was a blur of feeding and sleeping and learning the rhythms of a newborn. Emma helped with everything, fetching diapers, holding her sister, singing the same lullabies Rachel used to sing to her. You're a natural, Rachel told her. I learned from the best. Harold Finch came to visit on the 8th day after Hope's birth, bringing supplies and congratulations. She's beautiful, huh? He said, looking at the baby in Rachel's arm. Nathan would have been thrilled. I wish he could have met her. In a way, he did. He knew there would be another child. He wrote about it in his journal. Finch's eyes were soft. He left something for her, actually, a letter like the ones he left for you and Emma. I wasn't supposed to give it to you until she was born. He handed Rachel an envelope. The handwriting was Nathan's, careful and precise. For Hope, the child who will be born into a better world than her sister knew, Rachel opened it with trembling hands. Dear Hope, by the time you read this, you will know your story, born in a cabin in Montana to a mother who survived impossible things, sister to Emma who found my secret room, daughter of Rachel who proved that character matters more than blood. I will never meet you, but I know you already. You carry the strength of your mother and the courage of your sister. You were born into a family that understands what truly matters. Use your life well. Help others the way your mother helped everyone she met. Give without keeping score. Love without reservation. Be brave when the world tells you to be afraid. Welcome to the world, little one. You were born into good hands. Your friend across time, Nathan. Rachel read the letter through tears, then read it again. He knew, she whispered. He knew about Hope before she was even conceived. Nathan had a way of seeing things others couldn't, Finch said. He saw you, he saw Emma, he saw Hope, and he spent his life preparing for all of you. The foundation planning began 2 weeks after Hope's birth. Patricia arrived with paperwork, proposals, financial projections. The Nathan Turner Foundation for Single Mothers would be one of the largest charitable organizations in Montana, potentially in the country. We can help thousands of women, Patricia said, spreading documents across the kitchen table while Rachel held a sleeping Hope. Legal aid, emergency housing, job training, childcare assistance. Everything you needed when you were struggling. That's exactly what I want. I want every mother who's sleeping in her car with her kids to have a place to go. I want them to know someone cares. We'll need to sell some of the collection to fund the endowment. The paintings alone are worth enough to run the foundation for decades. Rachel thought about the vault about Nathan's life's work carefully preserved in the darkness below. Sell what we need to sell, keep the pieces that meant the most to him, and build something that would make him proud. There's something else. Patricia hesitated. You'll need people to help build the physical facilities, the community center, the housing units. I found a contractor who specializes in this kind of work. His name is James Crawford. What do you know about him? He's a veteran, carpenter, spent the last 10 years building facilities for fictional for veteran support organizations. Patricia paused. He also knew Nathan. Rachel's heart skipped. He knew Nathan. They served together in Vietnam. James was just a kid, 18 years old. Nathan was his sergeant. The connection felt like more than coincidence, like Nathan's hand reaching from beyond the grave to put the right people in Rachel's path. Set up a meeting. James Crawford arrived at the cabin 3 days later. He was in his early 70s, tall and weathered with hands that showed decades of work with wood and stone. His eyes were kind but guarded the eyes of someone who had seen hard things and learned to carry them quietly. Ms. Turner, he shook her hand firmly. It's an honor to meet you. Please call me Rachel, and this is Emma. Emma studied him with the careful assessment she'd developed over the past months. Did you really know Uncle Nathan? I did? James's face softened. He saved my life in Vietnam, more than once. We stayed in touch after we came home. I visited this cabin a few times over the years. Why didn't you come to the trial? You could have testified. Nathan asked me not to. James pulled a letter from his pocket. He left this for me. Said I should only come after the storm had passed, after you'd proven you could stand on your own. Rachel took the letter, her hands trembling. James, if you're reading this, Rachel has won. The wolves came and she fought them off. Now she needs someone to help her build. You're the best builder I ever knew. You took raw materials and turned them into shelters that saved lives. Do the same for her. Help her create something that will last beyond both our lifetimes. She's the daughter I never had. Take care of her. Nathan Rachel looked up from the letter, tears blurring her vision. He planned all of this, every single piece. That was Nathan, always thinking 10 steps ahead. James's voice was rough with emotion. He talked about you, for years. Showed me pictures, told me stories. He was proud of you long before you inherited anything. I barely knew him. He knew you? That's what mattered to him. Hope chose that moment to start crying, her thin wail cutting through the conversation. Rachel excused herself to feed the baby, leaving James and Emma alone in the main room. When she returned 20 minutes later, Emma was showing James her notebook. These are all the drawings I did when we were homeless, Emma explained. Houses I imagined we might live in someday. James studied each page carefully. You have a good eye for architecture. Mom says I might want to be a designer when I grow up. You'd be good at it. James looked up at Rachel. Your daughter is impressive. She's the bravest person I know. James spent 3 days surveying the property, making notes, drawing preliminary plans for what the community center could become. Rachel watched him work with quiet efficiency, never wasting emotion, treating every task with the same careful attention. On his last evening before returning to Helena, they sat together on the porch while Emma played with Hope inside. I'm going to take the job, James said, if you still want me. I want you. I think Nathan wanted you here too. He did. James stared at the mountains. He told me once that this land would become something important someday, that it would help people the way the cabin helped him. I didn't understand what he meant until now. What did the cabin help him with? Survival. James's voice was quiet. Nathan came back from Vietnam broken. We all did in our own ways. But Nathan found a way to put himself back together here. He used to say the forest didn't care what you'd done or what you'd seen. It just asked you to be present, to build something with your hands, to earn your peace one day at a time. Rachel thought about her own journey, the parking lots, the hunger, the fear, and now this cabin, this land, this chance to build something meaningful. I understand, she said. I really do. James turned to look at her. I think you might be the only person who does. Something passed between them in that moment. Not romantic, not yet, but a recognition. Two people who had survived hard things and learned to carry on. When can you start? Rachel asked. Give me 2 weeks to get my affairs in order, then I'll be back. With a crew? Just me at first. We'll bring in more people as the project grows, but the foundation, the real work that starts with individual hands. Nathan taught me that. Rachel held out her hand and James shook it. "Welcome to the team, Mr. Crawford." "James, please." "James?" She smiled. "Nathan chose well." He always did. The 2 weeks passed quickly. Rachel spent them planning, organizing, learning everything she could about running a charitable foundation. Patricia sent her books and documents and financial reports. Robert handled the ongoing legal matters, making sure Victoria's attempts to find grounds for appeal went nowhere. Emma started school in Cedar Falls, riding the bus each morning with children who had never known she'd been homeless, who saw only a smart, brave girl with a new baby sister and a story she didn't share. "Do you miss Portland?" Rachel asked one evening. "No." Emma didn't hesitate. "I miss Jessica sometimes, but Portland was where we were sad. Montana is where we're happy." "Are you happy, baby?" "The happiest I've ever been." Emma looked at her mother with those serious dark eyes. "Are you—" Rachel considered the question honestly. She still had nightmares sometimes. Still woke up reaching for Emma, certain they were back in the car, back in the parking lot, back in the endless cycle of survival. She still checked locks twice and worried about things she couldn't control and felt guilty for having so much when others had so little. But she also had peace. Real peace. For the first time in years. "I'm getting there," she said. "Every day, I'm getting a little closer." James returned exactly 2 weeks later, just as he'd promised. He brought tools, but not a crew. Said the foundation work needed to start small, needed to be built with care and intention, needed to honor what Nathan had started. "We're not in a hurry, huh?" he said. "We're building something that will last." The first project was small, a storage shed behind the cabin to house supplies for the families they would eventually serve. Simple construction that James walked Emma through step by step, teaching her to measure and cut and hammer nails straight. "You're good at this," he told her. "You've got your uncle's hands." Did Uncle Nathan build things? Everything you see here, every log, every stone, every carved detail, he built it all by himself. Emma looked at the cabin with new respect. That must have taken forever. 3 years for the main structure, another 10 to finish the details. He said it was the most important thing he ever did. More important than the collection, much more important, the collection was just money. This was home. Rachel watched them work together, James patient and careful, Emma eager and determined. Something was growing between them, a bond that felt like family. One evening after Emma had gone to bed and Hope was sleeping in her cradle, Rachel found James sitting on the porch staring at the stars. "Mind if I join you?" "Please." She sat down beside him, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders against the cold. "Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. Why did you never get married? Have kids of your own?" James was quiet for a long moment. "I came close once. A woman in Seattle. We were engaged, but I couldn't make it work. I was too broken, too damaged from the war. I pushed her away before she could figure out how messed up I really was. Do you regret it?" "Every day." He turned to look at Rachel. "But I've learned that regret doesn't change anything. You can't fix the past. You can only build something better in the future." "Nathan said something like that in one of his letters?" "He probably said it to me first. I wasn't always good at listening." Rachel smiled. "You're listening now." "I'm trying." James looked back at the stars. "Rachel, there's something I should tell you." "What?" "Nathan asked me to do more than build the community center. He asked me to watch over you, to make sure you were safe, to be here if you needed someone." Rachel felt her heart skip. "Like a guardian? Like family?" James's voice was rough. "I know it's not my place. I know we barely know each other, but Nathan saw something in you that he loved, and I can see it too. You're good people, Rachel. You and Emma and Hope. You deserve to have people in your corner." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I've never had that," she said quietly. "People in my corner, except Emma. And she's a child. She shouldn't have to be. She's not alone anymore. Neither are you." They sat in silence for a while, the stars wheeling overhead, the forest breathing around them. "James, yes. Thank you for coming here, for helping, for being the kind of person Nathan trusted. Thank Nathan. He's the one who brought us together. I do thank him, every single day." The foundation took shape slowly over the following months. James built the storage shed, then a small office building, then began clearing land for the community center. Rachel worked with Patricia on grants funding organizational structure. Emma helped wherever she could, proving herself capable and reliable beyond her years. And hope grew. From a tiny preemie who seemed impossibly fragile to a chubby infant who laughed at her sisters' faces and grabbed at her mother's hair. Cedar Falls embraced them completely. The librarian Betty became a regular visitor. Sheriff Whitaker stopped by to check on them. The doctor from Helena drove out once a month to examine Hope and make sure Rachel was recovering properly. They had built a life, a real life, with community and purpose and hope. But Rachel knew better than to believe the storm was over. Victoria was still out there, still plotting, still convinced she could find a way to take what wasn't hers. The call came 6 months after the trial. Rachel was sitting in the office building James had finished the week before reviewing plans for the community center when her phone rang. Patricia's number. "Rachel, we need to talk." Something in Patricia's voice made Rachel's stomach drop. "What is it?" "Victoria filed new papers this morning. She's not going after the inheritance anymore. She's going after you." "What do you mean?" "She's claiming you committed fraud, that you knew about the vault before Nathan died, that you manipulated him into leaving everything to you." Patricia's voice was tight. "She's also claiming you're running an illegal charity operation, that the foundation is a money laundering scheme." Rachel couldn't breathe. "That's insane. That's completely insane." "I know, and we'll fight it. But Rachel, this is going to get ugly, uglier than before." Rachel hung up the phone and sat in silence. Victoria wasn't going to stop, would never stop, would keep finding new ways to attack new angles, to exploit new weapons to deploy. The war wasn't over, it was just beginning. Rachel looked out the window at the clearing where James was working on the community center foundation, at Emma playing with Hope on a blanket in the grass, at the cabin that Nathan had given them. She had fought for this life, bled for it, nearly lost everything for it. And she would fight again, as many times as it took. For Emma, for Hope, for Nathan's legacy, for the mother she had become and the woman she was still becoming. Victoria wanted a war Rachel would give her one. The fraud accusation hit the news before Rachel could prepare. Victoria had leaked everything to the press. Headlines screamed about the homeless mother who had manipulated a senile old man, about the questionable charity operation in the Montana wilderness, about the hundreds of millions of dollars that might have been obtained through deception. Rachel's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, journalists, people she'd never heard of demanding statements and interviews and explanations. She turned it off and threw it across the room. "Mom," Emma's voice was scared. "What's happening? Your aunt is trying to destroy us, again." "But we won the trial. The judge said we were right." "Victoria doesn't care about right. She only cares about winning." Hope started crying in her cradle, upset by the tension in her mother's voice. Rachel picked her up, held her close, tried to calm her racing heart. Think. She had to think. Patricia called on the landline an hour later. "I filed an emergency motion to have the fraud case dismissed. The claims are baseless. There's no evidence of any wrongdoing." "What about the press? They're already running stories." "That's Victoria's strategy. She knows she can't win in court, so she's trying to win in public opinion. Destroy your reputation, make it impossible for the foundation to operate." "Can she do that?" "Not if we fight back." Patricia's voice hardened. "We need to go public with our side. Tell your story before she tells it for you." "I've never talked to reporters. I don't know how." "Then learn, because right now, silence looks like guilt." Rachel hung up and looked at Emma, who was holding Hope, trying to comfort both the baby and herself. "We're going to be okay," Rachel said. "I promise." "How do you know?" "Because we've survived worse, and because Nathan didn't leave us defenseless." The vault held more than treasure. Rachel descended the stone steps that night, flashlight in hand, searching for something she remembered from her first exploration of Nathan's collection. He had documented everything. Every acquisition, every decision, every piece of evidence that proved his mental clarity. She found what she was looking for in a locked cabinet behind the desk. A thick folder labeled Family Records in Nathan's precise handwriting. Inside were decades of documentation. Photographs taken at family gatherings with dates and notes on the back. Letters exchanged between Nathan and Rachel's father discussing the other siblings. Bank records showing every financial transaction within the family. And something else. A private investigator's report dated 3 years before Nathan's death. Rachel read it with growing horror. Nathan had hired someone to document Victoria's activities. The report detailed years of financial manipulation, including fraudulent insurance claims, embezzled funds from her real estate clients, and a pattern of predatory behavior toward vulnerable people. Victoria wasn't just greedy, she was a criminal, and Nathan had known. He was building a case, Rachel whispered to the empty vault. He knew they would come for me, and he was building a case to destroy them. She gathered the files and climbed back upstairs. The press conference happened 3 days later. Patricia had arranged everything: a room at the Helena Civic Center, cameras from every major network in Montana, plus representatives from national outlets who had picked up the story. Rachel stood at a podium with Patricia on one side and Robert on the other, Hope in a carrier against her chest, Emma standing just behind her. "My name is Rachel Turner," she began, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "6 months ago, I was homeless, living in my car with my 8-year-old daughter, pregnant, terrified, abandoned by the family members who are now accusing me of fraud." She took a breath. "My great-uncle Nathan Turner left me his property and his collection because he watched me for decades. He saw my siblings steal from me, betray me, abandon me, and he decided I deserved better." Rachel held up the private investigator's report. "But Nathan didn't just leave me an inheritance. He left me protection, documentation of my siblings' activities spanning 20 years, evidence that proves who they really are and why they're so desperate to destroy me." The room went silent. "Victoria Mitchell, my sister, has been accused of defrauding her real estate clients. Brandon Mitchell, my brother, has been accused of insurance fraud. These aren't allegations I'm making. These are findings from a licensed private investigator that Nathan hired to document their behavior." Rachel looked directly into the cameras. "I'm not a fraud. I'm not a criminal. I'm a mother who survived unimaginable circumstances and was blessed by an uncle who saw the truth when everyone else looked away. The foundation we're building will help thousands of single mothers. It will provide legal aid, housing, job training, and hope to women who are exactly where I was a year ago." She lifted her chin. "My siblings want you to believe I'm the villain in this story, but Nathan knew the truth, and now so do you." The questions came fast and fierce, but Rachel answered every one, calmly, honestly, with the dignity that Nathan had seen in her all along. By the end of the press conference, the narrative had shifted. Rachel Turner wasn't a predator, she was a survivor, and Victoria Mitchell was in serious trouble. The investigation moved quickly after that. The evidence Nathan had compiled was turned over to the Montana Attorney General. Within weeks, Victoria and Brandon were facing charges, not for what they'd tried to do to Rachel, but for the crimes they'd committed against others over the years. Victoria called Rachel one last time, 3 days before she was scheduled to appear in court. "You ruined us." Victoria's voice was raw, stripped of all pretense. "Everything we had is gone. Our reputations, our businesses, everything. You ruined yourselves." Rachel felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. "Nathan saw what you were decades ago. He just made sure the rest of the world saw it too. He was a crazy old man living alone in the woods. He had no right to judge us. He had every right. He watched you take and take and take. He watched you destroy everyone who trusted you, and he decided it had to stop. We're family, Rachel. Blood family. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" Rachel thought about Emma sleeping upstairs, about Hope growing bigger every day, about James who had become family in ways blood never had. "Blood doesn't make family," Rachel said quietly. "Character does. Nathan taught me that. I wish he could have taught you too. I'll never forgive you for this. I wasn't asking for forgiveness." Rachel hung up and blocked Victoria's number. It was the last time they ever spoke. The trial was brief and decisive. Victoria pleaded guilty to 3 counts of fraud to avoid a longer sentence. Brandon took a similar deal. Megan, who had mostly been a follower rather than a leader, received probation and community service. Daniel testified for the prosecution, finally breaking free from his siblings' influence. He looked at Rachel across the courtroom after his testimony, and she nodded once. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement. Maybe someday they could rebuild something. Maybe not. But at least he had tried to make amends. The Nathan Turner Foundation opened its doors on the first anniversary of Rachel's arrival in Montana. The community center stood where James had laid the foundation, beautiful and welcoming, built with the same care Nathan had put into the original cabin. Tiny homes dotted the property, emergency housing for mothers in crisis. A legal aid office operated from a building that Emma had helped design. Over 200 people gathered for the opening ceremony. Women who had already been helped by the foundation. Families from Cedar Falls who had supported Rachel through everything. Reporters who had covered her story from the beginning. Emma stood at the podium, 13 years old, now tall and confident. 5 years ago, she began, my mom and I were living in a car. We had nothing except each other. My aunts and uncles had taken everything we had. And when they tried to take this too, they told a judge my mom wasn't capable of managing her own life. She paused, letting the words sink in. They were wrong. My mom is the most capable person I've ever known. She kept me alive through homelessness. She drove us across the country with nothing but hope. She built this foundation from nothing into something that has already helped over 1,000 families. Emma's eyes found Rachel in the crowd. Uncle Nathan saw what she was before anyone else did. He watched her give and give and give even when she had nothing left to give, and he decided that someone like that deserved to be protected. She held up a piece of paper. He left me a letter before I was born. He said to protect my mom because she had spent her whole life protecting me. But he also said something else. Emma read from the letter. The most valuable thing in this room is not the paintings or the books or the coins. It's the family who found them together. Blood doesn't make family. Character does. She looked up at the gathered crowd. That's what this foundation is about. Finding the families who have character but not luck. Giving them the chance to become what they were always meant to be. The applause was deafening. Rachel stood in the back, hope in her arms, tears streaming down her face. James stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder. She's incredible, James said. She always was. I just gave her the chance to show it. You gave her more than that. James's voice was rough with emotion. You gave her an example, someone to look up to, someone who showed her what real strength looks like. Rachel leaned into his shoulder. Nathan gave us all something, she said. A second chance, a foundation to build on, a reason to believe that good things can happen to good people. He did more than that. James turned to look at her. He brought us together, all of us. You, me, Emma, Hope, this whole community. He spent his life alone, but he made sure we would never have to. The ceremony continued, but Rachel barely heard it. She was too busy thinking about Nathan. About the quiet man who had watched her from a distance for decades. Who had seen something in her worth protecting. Who had built a fortress of evidence and resources and connections to keep her safe after he was gone. She had never really known him, but she loved him anyway. That evening, after the guests had left and the community center stood quiet, Rachel walked to the memorial garden that had been created beside the main building. A stone monument stood at the center, carved with words Rachel had chosen from Nathan's letters. In a world of takers, remain givers. Build something that outlasts you. She stood before the monument as the sun set, hope sleeping against her chest, and spoke to the man who had saved her. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me, for believing in me, for giving us this chance. The wind stirred the trees, and Rachel chose to believe it was Nathan's answer. 5 years later, the foundation had helped over 5,000 families. Rachel sat in her office reviewing the annual report that would be presented to the board the following week. The numbers were staggering. Emergency housing for 3,000 women and children. Legal aid that had won over 400 custody cases. Job training that had placed 2,000 mothers in sustainable employment. But the numbers weren't what mattered most. What mattered was the 18-year-old Emma about to graduate from high school, with honors already accepted to Stanford to study architecture. She wanted to design buildings that helped people. Shelters and community centers and homes for those who had none. What mattered was hope now. 5 years old, running through the foundation grounds, with the children of mothers who had arrived with nothing and left with futures. She had Rachel's determination and James's patience and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. What mattered was James who had stayed, who had built not just the community center but a life alongside Rachel's, who had become Emma's mentor and Hope's father figure and Rachel's partner in everything. They had married 2 years ago in a quiet ceremony in the clearing beside Nathan's cabin. Emma had been the maid of honor. Hope had been the flower girl. Half of Cedar Falls had attended. Rachel still remembered her vows. I spent most of my life believing I didn't deserve good things, that I was broken, that I was alone. You taught me I was wrong, about all of it. James had cried. The tough veteran carpenter who had survived Vietnam and decades of solitude had cried in front of everyone. Nathan asked me to watch over you, he'd said. But you're the one who saved me, you and Emma and Hope. You gave me the family I never thought I'd have. Now Rachel looked up from her desk as Emma knocked on the door. Mom, there's someone here to see you. Who? Emma hesitated. Uncle Daniel. Rachel's heart clenched. She hadn't seen Danielle since Victoria's trial 4 years ago. He'd written a few letters, sent birthday cards to Emma and Hope, but they'd never spoken in person. Send him in. Daniel looked older than she remembered, gray in his hair now, lines around his eyes, but his expression was different than it had been. Softer, more at peace. Rachel. He stood awkwardly in the doorway. Thank you for seeing me. What do you want, Daniel? I wanted to tell you something. He took a breath. Victoria died last month, Cancer. She never got out of prison? Rachel felt nothing. No grief, no satisfaction, just emptiness. I'm sorry, she said, because it seemed like the thing to say. I'm not sure I am. Daniel's voice was quiet. She destroyed so many people, herself included. But at the end, she asked me to give you a message. What message? She said she finally understood why Nathan chose you. She said she spent her whole life taking because she was afraid of being empty. But you spent your life giving because you were already full. Rachel stared at her brother. She said that, her exact words, 3 days before she died. Daniel pulled an envelope from his pocket. She also asked me to give you this. Rachel took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in Victoria's handwriting. Rachel, I am dying and I have nothing. No money, no family, no one who cares whether I live or die. I am exactly what I was always afraid of becoming. You have everything. Not because you took it, but because you earned it. Because you gave when you should have protected yourself. Because you trusted when you should have been suspicious. Because you loved when you should have been angry. I hated you for that. I thought you were weak. But you're the strongest person I've ever known. Nathan saw it. I finally see it too. I can't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I can tell you that you were right. Blood doesn't make family. Character does. I hope you live a long and happy life. I hope Emma and Hope grow up to be just like you. I hope the foundation helps 1 million mothers. I hope you forget I ever existed. Victoria, Rachel read the letter twice, then set it down on her desk. Are you okay? Daniel asked. I don't know. Rachel looked at her brother. I spent so many years being angry at her, afraid of her, and now she's gone and I feel nothing. That might be the best thing you could feel. It means she can't hurt you anymore. She never could, not really. Rachel stood and walked to the window. She could take my money. She could threaten my daughter. She could drag me through court and smear my name in the press. But she could never take what really mattered. What really mattered, Rachel turned to look at him. My character, my love for my children, the person Nathan saw when he looked at me. She smiled slightly. Victoria spent her whole life trying to destroy that, and she failed. Daniel nodded slowly. I'm glad I came. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me. I'm glad too. Rachel hesitated, then asked the question she'd been avoiding for years. Daniel, do you want to be part of this family? Really part of it? I don't know if I deserve to be. That's not what I asked. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Yes, I want that more than anything. Then start over. Not as the brother who betrayed me, as someone new, someone who earns their place. I can do that. I hope so, because my daughters need all the family they can get, the real kind. Daniel left an hour later, but his visit stayed with Rachel for days. She thought about Victoria's letter, about the woman who had spent her life taking and ended up with nothing, about the choices that had led her to die alone and unmourned. And she thought about Nathan, about the quiet man who had given everything he had to protect someone he barely knew, who had built a legacy that would help thousands of mothers for generations to come. 2 paths, 2 choices, 2 very different endings. Rachel knew which one she had chosen. The Foundation's 10th anniversary was the biggest celebration Cedar Falls had ever seen. Over 500 people gathered in the community center. Women who had been helped by the Foundation returned to share their stories. Reporters came from across the country to document what had been built in this remote corner of Montana. Emma gave the keynote speech. 23 years old now, already a rising star in architecture, designing affordable housing projects across the country. She spoke about her childhood, about the parking lots and the hunger and the fear, about finding the cabin and the vault and the fortune that had changed everything. But the real treasure wasn't in that vault, she said. The real treasure was the family we became, the community we built, the thousands of lives we've touched together. She paused, her eyes finding Rachel in the front row. My mother taught me that character matters more than circumstances, that giving is more important than taking, that blood doesn't make family. These aren't just words. They're the principles this foundation was built on, and they're the principles I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Hope, now 10 years old, sat beside Rachel holding her hand. James sat on the other side, his arm around Rachel's shoulders. Mom, Hope whispered, did you really live in a car when you were pregnant with me? I did, baby. Were you scared? Every single day. What made you keep going? Rachel looked at her youngest daughter, at this child who had been born into hope and security and love, who had never known hunger or fear or uncertainty. "You did," Rachel said. "You and Emma. I kept going because you needed me to, because giving up wasn't an option when I had you to protect." Hope squeezed her hand. "I'm glad you didn't give up." "Me too, baby. Me too." That night, after the celebration ended and the guests went home, Rachel walked to the memorial garden one last time. The monument still stood where it had been placed 10 years ago. Nathan's words carved in stone. "In a world of takers, remain givers. Build something that outlasts you." She had done that. She had taken Nathan's gift and multiplied it 1,000-fold. The foundation had helped over 15,000 families now. Emma was designing buildings that would help thousands more. Hope was growing up to be kind and generous and brave. The legacy would continue long after Rachel was gone. She felt James approach before she heard him. "You okay?" "I'm thinking about Nathan." "What about him?" "I wonder if he really knew how much this would all become." James was quiet for a moment. "I think he hoped. He couldn't have known the specifics, but he knew you, and he trusted that you would do something extraordinary with what he gave you." "Was he right to trust me?" "Look around." James gestured at the community center to Mr. the tiny homes, the garden where they stood. "What do you think?" Rachel smiled. "I think he was." "So do I." They stood together in the darkness, two people who had found each other against all odds, who had built a life from nothing, who had proven that character could triumph over circumstances. "I love you," Rachel said. "I love you too. Thank you for staying, for building this with me, for being the father my daughters needed. Thank you for letting me." James pulled her close. "I spent most of my life alone. I thought that was what I deserved. But you showed me I was wrong." "We showed each other." Emma's voice came from behind them. "Are you two having a moment?" Rachel laughed, turning to see both her daughters approaching. Emma carrying a bottle of champagne, Hope bouncing with excitement. "Can we have a toast?" Hope asked. "Like they do in the movies." "Of course we can." Emma poured champagne for the adults and sparkling cider for Hope. They raised their glasses in the moonlight. "To Uncle Nathan," Emma said, "who saw what we could become before we did." "To the foundation," Hope added, "and all the mommies we've helped." "To family," James said, "the kind you choose." Rachel looked at the people gathered around her, her husband, her daughters, the legacy they had built together. "To second chances," she said, "and the courage to take them." They drank. Hope yawned and James scooped her up to carry her inside. Emma lingered for a moment, standing beside her mother. "Mom, can I tell you something?" "Always." "I remember everything. The parking lot, the cold, the hungry nights. I remember pretending we weren't homeless so I wouldn't make you sad." Emma's voice was steady. "But I also remember something else." "What?" "I remember feeling safe, even when we had nothing, even when I knew things were bad, because you were there. And as long as you were there, I knew we would be okay." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I was so scared I was failing you. You were saving me every single day." Emma hugged her mother tight. "I'm going to be that person for someone else someday. Because of you, because of Nathan, because of everything we built together." "I know you will, baby. I've always known." They walked back to the cabin together, the same cabin Nathan had built with his own hands 70 years ago. It had been expanded now, renovated to fit a growing family, but the original structure remained. The log walls Nathan had hewn, the stone fireplace where Emma had found the hidden button, the porch where Rachel had stood on her first day, unable to believe that this place was really hers. It was more than a house now. It was a symbol, a testament to what could be built when good people were given the chance to thrive. Rachel paused at the door, looking back at the foundation grounds one last time, at the tiny homes where mothers were sleeping safely with their children, at the community center where lives were being changed every day, at the memorial garden where Nathan's words would inspire visitors for generations to come. She thought about the woman she had been when she arrived. Broken, terrified, convinced she didn't deserve good things. She thought about the woman she had become. Strong, determined, capable of building something that would outlast her. Nathan had seen that woman when Rachel couldn't even imagine her. He had believed in a future that seemed impossible, and he had given everything he had to make it real. The debt could never be repaid, but it could be honored. By continuing his work, by helping others the way he had helped her, by living according to the principle he had carved into stone. In a world of takers, remain givers. Rachel had done that, would keep doing it until her last breath, and then Emma would carry the torch. And hope. And all the children who had grown up at the foundation who had learned that giving was better than taking that character mattered more than blood. The legacy would never die. She stepped inside, closed the door behind her, and went to join her family. The story of Rachel Turner didn't end that night. It continued for many years through triumphs and challenges, through growth and change, through generations of mothers who arrived broken and left whole. But the foundation had been laid, the walls had been built, the roof had been raised, and the home that Nathan had dreamed of, the home where good people could find safety and hope and love, would stand forever. Because blood doesn't make family. Character does. And character once built can never be destroyed.